Financial technology is at the heart of an open, seamless, and globally connected world. A cornerstone for people, businesses, and societies to grow and prosper, to seize new opportunities, and to finding where to go next. With decades of experience, merged with the power of software, we're on a mission to reinvent banks in times of accelerated change. From realizing innovation to empowering millions of people through every walk of life. Our software paves the way for a competitive, resilient, and sustainable future. A future that unlocks new value for everyone with scale, knowledge, and reliability embedded into our code. We are Tietoevry Banking. We create financial technology that powers tomorrow.
Welcome everybody to the Tietoevry Banking Card Webinar Day. My name is Helen Kjærulf Svane. I'm the Marketing and Communications Lead in Cards in Tietoevry Banking, and I'm very happy to be with you here today. I met a lot of you in person when we did the Card User Forum here at Fornebu in the spring, in April. This time we are excited to have you with us for another fully digital event, including 6 webinars with our experts in the card value chain. Our hope is that this will be another engaging and informative day, giving you valuable insight into the card industry and helping you stay ahead in your business. A few words about the agenda of today. We have carefully put together a varied and highly relevant agenda for the day. The agenda also includes some priorities for you and us to work on together when moving forward. As always, we will be looking forward with an update on our roadmap together with our Tietoevry Banking legend, Jan Ove Haugstad, and his team. Artificial intelligence keeps attracting attention, and we will be looking at AI from different angles today. You will get the latest updates on security and compliance, and we will also dive into unique challenges faced by visually impaired customers, together with a representative from the Finnish Association of the Visually Impaired. So stay tuned for a valuable and relevant webinar day for you and your company. Before we start the first webinar, I would like to mention some practicalities. There will be a 30-minute break in between each of the webinars. We will be running until 4 o'clock CET, that's Nordic time. So that should be 1 hour ahead for those of you who are connecting from Finland and Latvia, and 1 hour after or earlier for those of you connecting from the UK and Ireland. You will find the agenda inside this platform at all times, and we highly encourage you to send us questions during the webinars. We will have a Q&A session after each of the webinar, dealing with questions that are relevant to that particular webinar. And you do that by typing in your questions in the section on the right-hand side here in the platform. And just to remind you, all questions will be treated anonymously. So I'm now happy to introduce the first webinar. You will meet Mario Blasevic, the head of cards, who will give you the latest update from Tietoevry Banking. Mario is actually out visiting customers, and he is connecting here today from his hotel room in Amsterdam. And then Mario will be followed by James Johansson. James is our new lead service architect in card issuing, and he will provide you with the latest trends in cards and mobile payments. So Mario, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you for a nice introduction. In the digital age, we have flexibility to do our work from many places. I'm very happy to be with you today. I am going to talk to you through three areas basically today. So one is what is happening on Theatre Every dimension, the latest business updates, and what we could expect in the future. The second part is about some of the changes in Theatre Every Banking with our new managing director. And then the third part, it's about our priorities and strategy, both in Theatre Every Banking and in cards. So, to start with, when we discussed and when we met last time with you on Card User Forum in April, we discussed a lot about what will happen with Theatre Every Banking and our path for being listed as independent company. As you may know already, that plan has changed. So, as part of the strategic review that we had in Theatre Every, strategic review for banking has been completed in Q2 and decided that we are going to continue to be part of Theatre Every. The reason for canceling the stock listing of Theatre Every business as independent company is mainly due to the market condition not being favorable. So that means that for a foreseeable future, we are continuing as one of three businesses within Theatre Every. So if you look at the middle part of this slide, you see that Theatre Every Banking, together with Theatre Every Care and Industry, are the three software businesses that we have in Theatre Every. Then we have our digital engineering, which is Theatre Every Create. And then we have our managed services and infrastructure as part of Theatre Every Tech Services. Our CEO has also announced earlier in the year and also last year that there is an active sales process for Theatre Every Tech Services that continues. And we expect more update from our CEO during the next week when he is going to present quarterly results for Theatre Every. We would expect that that sale might be completed or announced further update on that. Or it might be even further delayed. We will learn next week. Regardless of the outcome for Theatre Every Tech Services, we have been working quite some time to reassure that we have good agreements between Theatre Every Banking and Theatre Every Tech Services that reassures that all of the services that we are consuming from tech services are regulated in a good way. So regardless of the outcome, what will happen with tech services, we are very confident that the service quality and continuity will remain the same for all of our services in Theatre Every Banking. So moving ahead to the second part and the update on the new managing director, I'm happy to share with you that Endre Ragnes has been appointed as a new managing director for our business. As you may understand, Klaus Andersen has been assigned previously to take us to the stock exchange, and since that hasn't happened, he has decided to leave the company, and now Endre is entered as of September. But Endre is not new to all of us. So Endre has been managing director for part of Theatre Every business for many, many years. And then he moved and became a board member in Theatre Every group that position he had for more than 10 years. And now that we are in continuing on our journey, Endre has taken a position to help us actually to strengthen the strategy execution and also to accelerate some of the initiatives that we have ongoing in Tietoevry Banking. Andre has spent his first week visiting many of you. He has been already visiting many of our customers and gathering valuable feedback about where we need to have more focus, and then also on aligning on the banking strategic agenda for different segments. So moving ahead, I will be happy to accompany Andrea to visit more of our customers in the journey that we have ahead. Moving then to the next part, which is really about strategy and priorities, both for Tietoevry Banking and for cards business. Basically, we are thinking the best way for us to further strengthen our strategy execution is to fully align with the strategy for you, our customers. So currently, we have customers in different geographies and in different segments. And we know that for some of the customers, you are using a lot of time to actually make sure you are more efficient, or you are doing mergers between different banks. So there is a substantial amount of time we need to use in the next period to actually enable all of you to make sure that you are able to integrate all of the banks that you have been either acquiring or merging. So that's one part. The second part on some of the strategic agenda for our customers, some of the largest banks in our large bank segment are actually running active transformation programs, moving away from old legacy systems and moving to our modern platform. So there are several programs that we are strengthening to make sure that we can deliver on that strategic initiative as well. And then, of course, there is a lot of compliance and innovation on your strategic agenda. That's on a strategic agenda for all of our customers. So a lot of activities that we have is actually around the rich roadmap, both towards new innovation, but also on the compliance space. And then during the day, we are going to talk more about that. And I'm happy to see that our teams have prepared a lot of good and valuable information in all of these areas. So you can actually tap into all of the activities that we have currently. And then also I would like to take opportunity for you to participate in some of the initiatives that we have ongoing. And also that we can team up even better, because some of the delivery activities that we might be doing on mobile payments and or click to pay or other activities, we would like to do it together with a group of customers within a segment to make sure that we can really accelerate and deliver this very efficiently and reduce time to market for many of you, introducing the new services that we have ahead of us. So with that, I can summarize because our key values that we have in Tietoevry Banking, openness, trust, diversity, you will see throughout the day good examples of that. I'm very happy that we have an excellent team with us today that can share useful information for all of you. And remember, we are here to create purposeful technology for the future. We are helping run societies in the Nordics, Europe, and beyond. And moving ahead, we are very excited to have you on the journey together with us. So with that, I can introduce the next speaker, James, excellent expert in the area. James has joined us recently in Tietoevry. And at the same time, he has been in the industry for many years. So he brings with us useful experience about the card market and trends. And that's what he's going to share with us now. At the same time, he's going to put these trends into perspective. What does it mean for you, our customers, and what we in Tietoevry Banking are doing about that? So with that, I would like to hand over to you, James.
Thank you very much, Mario. Very kind introduction there. And good morning to everyone. As Mario mentioned, my name is James, and I recently joined the Tieto Every team here in Oslo, after having spent quite a few years in London working with both Visa and MasterCard in various international roles. I look forward to hopefully meeting many of you in person as we work together in the future. Today I'll be talking about some trends in the market that are driving change not only now, but will also be driving change in the future. The areas that I'll be focusing on today are mobile and wallet payments, self-service, and sustainability. Another major area, of course, is AI, but that's going to be covered well by a couple of my colleagues later on today, so I won't be touching on that in the trends portion of this presentation. To start, I've looked at some current macroeconomic factors that are impacting our region and, of course, the consumers that we're servicing within the region as well. The European Central Bank has projected that inflation is going to rise slightly by the end of the year and then decline to about 2.2% next year and 1.9% in 2026. The GDP in the Eurozone is expected to grow by about 3.4% this year and next, and then by about 3.3% in the following year. Interest rates have recently been cut by the central banks in the US, Sweden, and Switzerland. However, we are expecting as well to see cuts by the central banks in Norway and the UK as well in the not too distant future. This all shows that the wider economy has by no means recovered completely. However, we do see that it is slowly improving at least. We see that the future of EU payments is set for dynamic changes. Post-pandemic, contactless payments have become the norm. PSD2 and PSD3 will introduce new open finance solutions, enhance transparency, increase consumer control over financial data, and boost security as well. Additionally, there's a growing focus on sustainability, with payment providers adopting eco-friendly practices and also supporting green fintech solutions as well. Looking ahead, the EU payments market will evolve through not only technological advances, but also regulatory changes. Businesses and consumers must stay agile, adapting to a landscape where digital convenience and security is crucial. Players in this sector need to anticipate and react to these changes to capture opportunities in a growing market. We also see with these challenging financial times and changing technologies and regulations that economies of scale are becoming increasingly important within the market. With that, we see that large mergers are beginning to happen within the Norwegian market, and we expect similar mergers to happen in the future, both here locally and internationally as well. We look forward to being your partner through these challenging times and help you build meaningful solutions for the future together. Here you'll see a couple of images highlighting that wallet payments are well on the way to becoming a norm. From when we started to see wallet payments in 2019 here in the Nordics, the growth of these transactions has been very steep. The growth from 2022 to 23, for example, was 44%, resulting in roughly 3.2 million transactions. As of August this year, we had about 2.5 million transactions, which is the same as the whole of 2022. This is, of course, a relatively small part of the total amount of transactions that we process on a daily basis, but we are only expecting these numbers to grow significantly moving into the future as more banks and issuers are releasing these features to their cardholders. A survey by Visa shows that Gen Z and millennials were early adopters of mobile wallets. For example, in the UK, 45% of Gen Z and 32% of millennials were using mobile wallets in 2020, compared to the 28% of Gen X and 20% of baby boomers. Since then, the landscape of this has rapidly changed. As you can see on the graph to the right, the widespread adoption with Gen Z and baby boomers highlights a broad reach of mobile payments, This is no longer a generational thing. Now here I would like to look a little closer at three areas within mobile and wallet payments and also tokenization. First of all, the consumer preferences. While Europe is often seen as one market, it's important to recognize the differences within the region. Preferred payments methods vary from country to country, reflecting Europe's diverse payment landscape. Cards remain predominant throughout, but they're complemented by bank transfers and also direct debits. In total, they make up about 97% of all non-cash payments. The trends towards digital payments is growing, with a shift towards cashless payments and seamless payment experience. With smartphone penetration expected to exceed 89% in the EU this year, mobile devices have become key tools for online shopping and payments as well. Mobile commerce is projected to account for 43% of the global e-commerce market and over half of the e-commerce market in the UK, indicating a shift towards more convenient mobile shopping experiences. However, despite the high add-to-cart rates with mobile e-commerce, we also see that it has the lowest conversion rate of all technologies. The adoption of contactless payments surged through the COVID-19 pandemic, reaching over 68% of all card payments in the EU zone, according to Visa. This trend highlights the growing popularity of hygienic and efficient payment methods. Now, an emerging version of wallet and mobile commerce payments is in-car payments. Here we can already see that MasterCard has partnered with car giants such as Mercedes and Skoda to build the future of in-car payments. A MasterCard study shows that 46% of German motorists can imagine making payments through their in-screen display, in-car display for various services. In-car payment technology will also enable manufacturers to introduce pay-per-use models for services such as driver assistance and infotainment solutions. Around about half of all those asked would be interested in these sort of pay-per-use features within their cars in the future. Now let's look at some drivers within mobile wallet usage across Europe. In today's age of financial convenience, meeting consumers' needs instantly and on their terms is essential. Smart device payment methods, which can store payment information for multiple bank accounts, aligns perfectly with these rising expectations. PSD2 introduced new open banking features, and PSD3 will continue to advance open banking solutions. In the UK, Apple Pay users can now add their cards to Wallet, and then they will be allowed to conveniently view and access relevant information such as their debit card balance. In 2024, we've seen Vipps Mobile Pay, launch 3 Nordic countries on one app platform. We've also seen the launch of the European Payments Initiative solution called Wero in 3 countries in Europe as well, with plans for more countries in the near future. Consumers have been looking for these sort of convenient cross-border payment solutions for a long time, so this is definitely a step in the right direction for this. Governments are also now promoting cashless economies. For example, in Sweden, they are incentivizing reduced cash usage, but also ensuring that cash remains a viable option in a crisis. The European Commission is revising the Payment Services Directive to adapt the EU's financial sector for digital transformation and ensuring that all the players in the market are ready for all the changes coming. Now, consumers expect to have a lot of functionality and information at their fingertips at all times, and self-service functionality is the best way to enable that. For the purpose of this presentation, I've split this into 6 areas that we can explore here, but I'm sure there are plenty of other options that can be enhanced by self-service in the future. First of all, card and transaction controls. MCC, geographic and channel controls, spend limits and PIN management are examples of controls that can be exposed directly to card users in an easy way. There have also been discussions on a card network level for mandates around this kind of functionality as well. Subscription management. A new study by Juniper Research found that by 2028, the subscription economy will rise to $996 billion US. That's up by 68%, or the $593 billion expected in 2024. Card on file transactions processed by Tietoevry grew by 126% from 2022 to 23, and is continuing to grow, and we expect that to continue in the future as well. This shows how important it is for consumers to understand their subscriptions and also have the ability to control this in a much better way than they do today. Digital card display. Heightened security and fraud awareness is leading to programs where there are no visible card details printed on cards, and also more digital-only concepts being launched as well. With this, cardholders are now in need of a more secure way to view full card details for online shopping and other purposes. And this is typically through apps or websites. Token lifecycle management. As mentioned before, adding cards to wallets and stuff like that has become the norm. Now with that, the consequence of this is needing to have a better overview of which wallets you've actually added your card to, and also to be able to manage these tokens. You might need to suspend or delete something on an old phone that you've sold on or something along those lines. Very important to have that functionality. Disputes and chargebacks. The ability to start a dispute process in-app by identifying a transaction in the transaction history and then starting the process from there is a lot more convenient for consumers than the solutions they often have today. AI can also assist in this by flagging potentially suspicious transactions as well. One-time use cards. Having the option to create a one-time use card for e-commerce or other specific transactions where the cardholder doesn't want to expose their normal card details is a functionality has become increasingly important as well to consumers. Now, the last topic that I'll be looking at briefly today is sustainability. As it says here on the slide, sustainability is no longer just a trend. It is a standard consideration influencing consumer behavior, which means it is very important for us to always consider this when bringing new services to market. In 2024, a study showed that 40% of consumers have a willingness to pay a sustainability premium for their financial services. This is an increase of 6% from 2022. However, the average from all other industries is 54%. And this shows that there's clear room for improvement within financial services around this. So a little bit of food for thought for everybody here. What could potentially be the cause of this low result for financial services? Is there a generally low willingness to pay for financial services? Or is the industry just not communicating the potential benefits in a good enough way? Now, MasterCard is accelerating its efforts to remove first-time use PVC plastics from its network. From the 1st of January 2028, all cards produced on the MasterCard network must be made from a more sustainable material. Also, according to a Visa article, only 11% of banks are looking into greener offerings. But other studies have shown that up to a third of European consumers would be willing to change bank for a more sustainable and green offering. So there's a clear disconnect here between the banks and the consumers. And finally, what are we here at Tietoevry doing to become more sustainable? Well, first of all, we're working towards becoming carbon neutral by 2026. And I invite everybody to read our sustainability report on our websites. We also produce roughly 20 million cards per year for our customers, which is a leading position in the Nordics. And this year, so far, 93% of those have been from sustainable materials, which means that only 7% are actually first-time use PVC. It's a huge step in the right direction. Now, we've looked at some areas within mobile and wallet payments, self-service, and sustainability. And I'd like to leave all of you with these two quotes that I find very relevant in times like this. First of all, Machiavelli. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. And Charles Darwin, the one most adaptable to change is the one that survives. Now, with that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for listening, and I will hand back to Helen.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Mario. Mario, for your update on the Tieto Every Banking, and James for good insight on what it will take to stay competitive in the cards and payment industry going forward. We have 2 questions. I will start with you, Mario, because I know that you're eager to leave for a customer. With the new managing director in place in Tieto Every Banking, what can we expect, or what does that mean for us as customers?
Yeah, so with Andre, I think we can expect a lot of focus on customers and to both understand what's on your agenda, and then also what we can do to help you execute on your strategic agenda. You can also expect to meet him and meet us probably even more often. And then we would like to have a good discussions with you about both the areas where we are currently helping you, but also to look into areas where we can help you in the future, both regarding the technology projects that you might have or other critically and strategically important.
Okay, so the next question goes to you, James. How do we ensure that the cardholder is safe in the constantly changing environment that you described in your webinar?
Developing according to the most up-to-date standards, both technologically but also regulatory. So we are always making sure that what we do keeps our customers safe, but also the cardholders safe and their data safe as well. We will have another presentation later on today as well, that'll be explaining more in detail about what we're doing with regards to sort of data security standards and payment services directives and stuff like that. So I invite everybody to continue listening for that, because it'll be very interesting with regards to that area as well.
Thank you. And one last question for you, but it might be for our friends in card personalization, but let's see if you can answer it, and if not, we can send it to them. What is the reusability level of reused plastics in card production?
I mean, I don't know a huge amount about it, but I know that there are schemes coming quite soon from the card networks, where they're looking at being able to shred the cards, where you can separate the plastic from the metal and the chips. And that's been the huge issue for now, is being able to separate them. There are now specialized shredders on the market that can separate these materials from each other, which will then enable the plastic to be recycled in a better way and then reused for future cards as well. But yes, I'm sure that our friends from the Perso side will have a lot more details on that than I do.
Great. Thank you, Mario. And thank you, James.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's time to start wrapping up. Thanks to the audience for your questions. The questions that we haven't covered, please remember that you will find the email addresses of all the presenters in the slide pack that we will share with you later this week. And I also received a question about whether this event is recorded. Yes, it is recorded, and you will receive the recording together with the slide pack. So remember to reach out to my colleagues directly or through your business manager. Now we will have a break, about 25 minutes before the next webinar starts at 11 sharp Nordic time. After the break, the next webinar out is a 60-minute webinar on the card roadmap and innovation, together with Jan Ove Haugstad and his team. So you will find us here when the break is over, and you use the same link as when you logged in for this webinar that just ended. So if you want to, you can just stay connected and mute the screen while you're off to enjoying a nice cup of coffee or tea. But be sure to be back at 11 o'clock CET. That would be 10 o'clock UK time and 12 o'clock Latvia and Finland time. Enjoy your break. Welcome back, everybody, to the Card Webinar Day. In the first webinar today, you heard Mario Blasevic and James Johansson update us on Tieto Every Banking and the market trends going forward. In the next webinar, this is the one that always gets the highest score from the audience after our customer events. We are very proud to have our very own Tieto Every Banking legend, as we like to call him, also known as Jan Ove Haugstad, and his colleagues who will present our card issuing roadmap with a deep dive into how we innovate. This is a 60-minute webinar, so get ready for some really interesting and useful information. But before we move on, remember to send us your questions during the webinar. You do that by typing in your question in the upper right corner in the platform. And remember that slides and recordings will be shared with you guys afterwards, later this week. In the Q&A after the webinar, we hope to see your questions, so type them in within the next 15 minutes or so. And remember that we will treat all questions anonymously. So I will now pass on the word to Jan Ove and his team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. And yes, thank you for introduction. I have with me many good colleagues today. So we are going to cover the following. We're going to give you insight on ongoing deliveries, and we're also going to present some new developments that we are going to work with. Together today, I have with me Tor Blindheim, Sandra Løvstakken, Benedikt Amundsen, and Bendik Flugstad. Let's get started. The topics we are going to go into is, I'm going to start first with an API update. As you remember, in the last, just before summer, we had a webinar. We gave you an introduction to what we are doing. Today, I'll continue to give you updates related to that. Then we are going to look at Click to Pay, which is a new service that both Visa and MasterCard have introduced. We are working quite into that, and Tor will present it for you. We will also present a new functionality within the authorization system, meaning looking at new feature for cash control on both on the deposit and on the withdrawal side. We will have an introduction to what schemes in these days are hunting scheme performance. And maybe some of you are aware that they are putting fines to issuers that are not according to the latest rules. And we will end this webinar with the latest update within credit cards. Okay, let's get started. The APIs. We presented an API overview in the last webinar, and you've probably seen this slide before, because I wanted to start with a brief introduction of where the APIs actually are being used. This is the simple card usage flow. You use your card, there's a bunch of transactions, authorization, clearing, it might be a tokenization, it might be pretty secure. Everything goes into the Tieto Every Banking Cards backend system. The APIs, though, are coming on the top. We have a lot of functionality, as you know, in the card client. And when you're using the card client and you're putting a button, you want to see the limit for a card, or you want to see other details on the card, there's an API going from the web side of the card client down to the Tieto Every backend systems. And all the functionality we have available in the card client is also possible in two other main channels, namely the bank's backend channels and, of course, the bank's self-service channels. So if you use your mobile phone, if one of the customers use their mobile phone, want to click in and adjust the regional blocking for his card, there's an API going through from the mobile phone down to the Tier to Every backend system. Okay, so why is this? What's important related to the APIs? We are currently in the middle of a renewal process, meaning that we are going from the SOAP, which is the current or the old protocol, to a new REST protocol, which means that when we are doing this transformation, we need to follow a lot of rules, and we need to have a common overview about what we are doing. And there are different approaches to this overview. If you are interested in which use case do I use if I'm going to make a new program, then we have that view. We have a readiness view where we could go in and see when will this version of this API be ready, and there's also a sunset view. What is important here for us is that we need to set a specific release date, and we need to set specific sunset dates. And we need to have much better description than what we have today, meaning we need to have a user guide, implementation guide, and programmer's guide. And just to show you some examples of what we have already is different guides on these specific web services. In the new guides that we are producing, we are also trying to present good, readable, easy readable flowcharts where you could easily see where this specific API is being used between the different components. So what's important here? For us, it's really important to have a really good development process. And that means that all APIs must follow the same guidelines. And why is this important? Excuse me. It's because if your programmer is going to make a backend an application, and you are going to have calls to different part of the Tier to Every system, for instance, to the ledger system, credit card system, or the authorization system, you want to see that this is all in place in a way that it's easy to jump from one API to another API. And how do we achieve this? The most important is that architects and key developers must work together. They need to have the same routines, they need to have the same way of reporting, and what we are doing on the Tier to Every side must be planned and visible, and it needs to be visible for you as the customer. And to follow that a little bit, we have the status on these API today is that we have total of 63 APIs defined that we are working with. 42 of them is already in production or ready for production. There are 13th API where we have a contract approved. And what do we mean by that? The contract is the written technical documentation that you as a customer would have access to, and you could start planning your development when the contract is ready. And we have 8 APIs that are still under contract approval, meaning we are not ready to give information to you when you are doing your implementation. We need to wait until we have that ready. So if we look at the development phase at the really high level, we have the first phase, the contract, and to make that ready. When that's okay, we have the technical documentation to be shared together with you. You could start development on your side, and you could initiate a project toward Tier to Every banking if you want our assistance during that phase. We also have the test phase, which means that we could set up or make the test system available for your team. We could give assistance during the testing, and we could approve for moving into production. The last phase is the production phase, of course, which means that we will set the new service in production. It could either be just opening for your bank's access, or it could be that you're the first one to use the service, which means that this will be the first time. You could also start with a small pilot if necessary, which means that we will assist you in how to just limit the number of authorization or whatever you're doing testing within a specific area. And we could do monitoring and follow up during these the assistance. So let's move to a picture where you could see the internal process that we have. This is actually the tool and the reporting we are using internally. And here you could see, if I go to the first line, there's a new service for within cars, which we call the Card Service API. And that API, as you could see in the lifecycle block, it is live. We do have a contract status, and that one is approved, and it is available in production. We could go down to another one a little bit further down. We have the token APIs. They are also live, but we are pending for the final approval. So this is different statuses. If you look at the one in the bottom, that's actually the API that I did show in one of the first page, that we have the documentation ready. The contract is ready, and it's in the conditional approval. If we look at details on that one, this is actually the flow I showed earlier, where this API is used between the mobile phone and the PIN administration system and the HSM in the background. So this is the way this is the tool we are using internally in order to keep track of the status, if the document ready, and the different phases. Okay, so what's in it for you, the customer? We need to bring our internal tools, our internal information. We need to bring that up to you as our customer, meaning that there is a demand for a new portal, and we are working together with other colleagues within Tieto Every Banking to realize and set up a portal. And by that, the target, what we are achieving is that you should have access to this portal, and you should be able to go in, look at the similar view that I just showed you, and you will have all the APIs status and when they are available in the portal. And as you can see here, all the different teams within card issuing would have their APIs into the portal, and it will gradually replace what we actually have today, which is the view to and a lot of lists, Excel sheets describing what we have. And this new portal, or target for that one, is to have the first version live just before next summer. Okay, I think you heard my throat is not that good today, but this is okay. I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues, Tor Blindheim, who will talk about Click to Pay.
Thanks, Jan-Ove. Hi, I'm Tor Blindheim. I head up the card mobile payment section. And as Jan-Ove said, I'll be given a status update on Click to Pay. So if we jump right into it, for those that doesn't know this, Click to Pay is an EMVCo brand for the card network's own solution for secure remote commerce. So Visa said, well, actually a couple of years ago when they started talking about Click to Pay. So this is their own PayPal. This is the digital wallet that customers can use when they do online shopping. So exemplified in the picture on the right-hand side, you can see that a MasterCard customer can do MasterCard Click to Pay select a simple way to check out when shopping online. We did cover Click to Pay on some of our previous events. So like the physical event in April this year, Sandra did spend some time talking about the mandate itself, the difference between MasterCard solution and Visa solution. And I'll be giving an update on where we are with this, because in some areas things are ready. In other areas we need amendments and development. So starting off with MasterCard and the MasterCard solution, it's important to pinpoint that solution from our point of view is ready. So we have a solution available in production that supports push provisioning to Click to Pay, and it's been live since the beginning of this year. On the Visa part, Visa did change their whole Click to Pay solution in a new mandated solution from last year. So it's no longer a Visa offered solution. It's supposed to be an issued offered Click to Pay. I'll get back to the details on that in my next slide. But what we're doing now is to modify the initial Visa offered solution that we had developed. We are integrating to new Visa APIs, and we know through communication with Visa that they've eased up on many of the requirements, especially related to auto-enrollment in many European countries, including the Nordics. So that leaves us in a situation where we need to offer the click-to-pay solution in two different phases. So we aim at supporting the opt-in solution, which means push provisioning for click-to-pay during the first quarter of next year, hoping that the APIs will be ready by end of this year. And the support for auto-enrollment, which still counts in some countries, we have an estimated readiness by the middle of 2026. If we go in to talk about MasterCard a bit more in detail first, I'll be moving over to Visa in a minute. The MasterCard offered Click to Pay is a solution where MasterCard owns the account holder data. So MasterCard are the ones that provides the terms and conditions to the cardholder. They own all the details that's entered into this account system, so where the profiles are maintained. Push provisioning, meaning adding cards from a mobile banking app to Click to Pay, has been mandated since October last year for issuers with over 250,000 cards. We do see that MasterCard are moving in the direction that Visa have moved in. So there is an updated mandate to support issuer offered Click to Pay also for MasterCard if you don't support push provisioning. So with the push provisioning solution, we've been ready since Q1 this year, and we have already 2 issuers that are live using the solution. The next step for a MasterCard issuer is to start an MDES project if you want to support this, and then there's the commercial process between the issuer and us in Tieto Banking. If we move over to Visa, and I'll be focusing on Visa for the remainder of this part, the fact that the solution is issuer offered means that it's the issuer that is setting the terms and conditions and presenting them to the user. It's the issuer that owns the data jointly in some scenarios together with Visa, and is responsible for creating the customer and maintaining the customer details in the Click to Pay world. It's mandated for all issuers, irrespective of size and card volumes. In the UK, the mandate went into effect, or is going into effect this month. In the Nordics, the mandate goes into effect in April next year. And here, as I mentioned in my previous slide, there are many exemptions to the original mandate from Visa. This is not the case in the UK. The UK issuers, as far as I understand communication with Visa, need to provide a timeline to support the full mandate, which you can do based on the information provided here, and also in direct meetings we've had with the issuers. So where are we in terms of status? As I said, we are in development still. We need to revise the original version that we had. We expect that our APIs for self-service channels to be ready by the end of this year. So this can be consumed by the issuer's own in-house apps. It will also be consumed by our TA2 Every banking white label apps. So for my cards and mobile banking, we will give a proposal for issuers using those during November or December this year. So that will be covering the first phase of issuer offered click to pay. And what is the contents of this first phase? The main features are threefold. So it's to support the use cases where issuers can do a eligibility check, meaning to figure out, does the customer have a click to pay profile already? Profile or account are synonymous terms in this setting. They also need to figure out, does the customer have cards that can be provisioned to click to pay? So similarly to push provisioning for Google Pay, knowing whether to present the add to Google Pay button within the app, you need to do some kind of eligibility check before you can present the ability to add, or the possibility to add, cards into click to pay. Then once that is established, it's to support a different use case that is push provisioning, meaning the ability to add the card to an existing profile if that already exists, or to create a click to pay profile if it doesn't exist, and add the card to that new profile. The third use case is to allow cardholders to do lifecycle management of the click to pay profile. So meaning updating profile information like address, email, phone number, for instance, removing the card from click to pay, and deleting the profile completely. So by deleting the profile, you will also be deleting all the cards that the issuer has added to click to pay. If for issuers that want some more technical information and also functional documentation, this originally came from Visa and is available on Visa Online. It came in updated versions in June this year. So the two highlighted documents are now in updated versions from Visa. So if you don't have access to Visa Online, you can contact your Visa representative and get them from them. And especially the guide on the right-hand side, so the issuer guide, is very easy to follow and have UI UX examples and presents the sort of best practice implementations and the mandatory things that you need to support. It should be noted that it's not that well documented, the exceptions that Visa has provided in Nordics and Baltics and some other countries. But through communication with Visa, it's easier to get a fuller understanding of that. Seeing that the card is pushed into click to pay, it's also the usage side of things. So when using click to pay during shopping, Visa will be leveraging what's called FIDO, or Fast Identification Online standards, to deliver cardholder verification during these online transactions. So Visa is rebranding what I think they originally called just FIDO authentication to what they call Visa Payment Passkey. What will happen is that when Visa is doing the cardholder verification, they will validate the data and pass the results on to the processor, which in many cases is TA2 Every banking, as we operate the ACS and have the treaty secure solution for issuers. We need to upgrade our ACS to receive this FIDO verification data coming in from Visa. And Visa will be the one validating this, and we will just receive information that has happened and trace of that, and can build our rules based on that. Visa said in one of the recent business news that they are aiming at starting pilots together with issuers in selected markets by the middle of next year. So that sums up the click to pay section of this session, and I'll leave the word over to Sandra for the cash control functionality.
Thank you, Tor. Yes, hi, my name is Sandra, and I will give you a short update on some new authorization functionality related to cash control. So, we are currently working on new functionality for deposit and withdrawal limits. And in a previous user group event, we presented our cash deposit limit functionality. So this is functionality that is ready and available today. But we are also working on a new solution for withdrawal limits. So this is a solution that is similar to the deposit limit solution. And one thing to notice is that the limits are on customer level, meaning if a cardholder in your bank has 3 different cards, these limits are counted on customer level and not card level, which in some cases may also help to prevent fraud. I will give you a short recap on the deposit limit functionality shortly, and also show you some mock-ups or examples of the withdrawal limit screens that we are working on that will be available in the card client. And the estimated timeline for this new functionality is between second and third quarter of next year, 2025. And a separate proposal can be sent to those of you who are interested in this solution. So please feel free to reach out to our team if this is relevant for your bank. That could be either the deposit limit or the withdrawal solution, or both. This might be depending on which market your bank operates in. So to give you a recap of the cash deposit solution, as mentioned, this is functionality that is already available today. So some of you might already have this functionality. The first screen here is reached from the cost setup in the card client in the deposit limit tab, which is the administration screen on institution level. And here you can view the existing limits already set up and also set up new deposit limits, as you can see here in the green circle. By clicking on this, the bank is directed to a new screen where new limits can be set up. And the limits that are added here are the default limits. However, it's also possible to set specific rules on a specific customer. So if we go to the next slide, this shows the screens for setting specific customer rules, which can be done from the customer list, as you can see here, by clicking the Actions button and Deposit Information. And here you will first of all see the default institution rules, and the bank is given the opportunity to add specific customer rules if needed, as shown in the green box here on the left-hand side. So this was just a short recap of the cash deposit limit functionality, and moving on to the new withdrawal limit functionality that we are currently working on. On this next slide here, I have added an example of how that screen might look like, but please note that this is an example only, and the solution is still in design, so changes may apply. But as you can see, the screens are very similar to the deposit limit screens that we just looked at. We'll do some changes to the existing screen in this example called Cash Control to include both functionality. So when creating new limits, the bank will have the opportunity to add which category it is, whether it's a deposit limit or a withdrawal limit. But as mentioned, it's up to the bank whether both of these are relevant for your bank or maybe only one of them. Also for the withdrawal limits, it will be possible to add specific customer rules as well. So this was just a short overview of some new functionality that we are working on related to cash control. And with that, I give the word over to Benedicta.
Sandra, my name is Benedicta, and I will talk to you about 2 scheme performance requirements the authorization approval rate and the abandonment rate. And these two rates are important to be aware of both for you as a bank and for your cardholders. So first, the authorization approval rate. In easy terms, this rate measures the number of authorization that should get approved. And what is new here is that Visa will introduce additional minimum approval rates, where they have set different thresholds for different categories. And the different categories are the ones that you can see on the left side here, the domestic versus international authorizations, card present versus card not present, meaning typically if you use the card in a physical store versus when shopping online, and the secure transactions. And if you are wondering where your bank can find your approval rates, you can find them in Visa Online. Visa has also introduced 4 new decline categories. And when we are talking about the number of authorization that should get approved, it's also natural to look at the declines. And these are the 4 categories. If you look at the blue boxes highlighted with the blue outline, these are the ones that I will cover today. First, the category 1 that indicates when a authorization should not be reattempted. And it's really important to only use this one when it's appropriate, because if not, it will affect especially the cardholder. I will cover this in the next slide. Also, the category 4, which is typically used for a very generic response code. So typically the response code called 05, where the banks are fined if they're using it too much. Okay, so first, the category 1. When we are talking about response code, it means that it tells when an authorization is happening, the response code indicates what happened. So it gives a response. And when we are talking about response code number 1, it's only to be used when it indicates a permanent condition that cannot be fixed by the merchant. And it's really important to only use this when appropriate, because it indicates a permanent condition. So if it's used inappropriately, it can have some effects. And these some response codes are placed on Visa's blocking list. And some examples you can see on the left side here, where some merchants will block the card for further use. We actually had one scenario here that can be quite interesting, where a cardholder was standing in a parking lot trying to use their card. And the first authorization was responded with the response code called 14, which means invalid account number. So what happened then is that the card was placed on the merchant's blocking list, so it couldn't be used further. And what actually happened then is that we were not able to remove the block, so a brand new card actually had to be ordered. So it's really important to only use this response code when it's actually appropriate. And then the category 4, which focuses on the response code 05. So this response code is a very generic response code. Issuers used to use this response to just indicate that the authorization was declined, no matter what the actual reason was. So it didn't really indicate what led to the decline. It was just a generic response code where the authorization was not approved, it was declined, it's very generic. So the schemes have actually set a threshold for the maximum number of authorizations that can be responded with this 05 do not honor response code. And for Visa, the maximum is that 5% of the declines can be this 05 code. And for MasterCard, it's maximum 5% of card not present declines that can be responded with this code. So we are currently working, and we have been doing it for quite some time, to reduce the use of this response code 05. So this is something that we are continuously working on, improvements and replacements for more accurate response code. so that we can actually give an indication to what led to the decline instead of just using this generic one. And one example of what we have done that you can see on the left side here, if something was wrong with the DCBV, instead of just using the generic response code 05, we changed it to a standard C2 error, which actually indicates, okay, what went wrong? Okay, it was the DCBV. And we also have some adjustments that the bank can do. One of them is to adjust the contactless low value limit. So originally, this limit was set to 50 euros, which back then was translated into roughly 500 Norwegian krone. But as you all are aware of, the exchange rate has changed a lot lately. So the Norwegian krone has gotten weaker compared to the euro. So 500 Norwegian krone is not the same as it was back then when using the card online. So some banks can consider to adjust this low value limit contactly, especially when this is especially being observed during holidays when cardholders are abroad and outside of the PSD2 scope area, where a soft decline may not exist, leading to a decline straight away. Another example that the bank can do is to reduce the usage of the block code 5. And this scenario is typically used when a bank employee is about to block a card and doesn't really know what code to use, so they end up using the 05 code because it's so generic. But the bank should try to limit the use of this 05 because the banks are being fined if used too much. So we should try to reduce the use of this one and only use when actually appropriate. And then over to the 3D secure abandonment rate. So this rate indicates when a cardholder abandons their online purchase when asked to provide an extra security step. So typically when asked to provide, for example, bank ID, and then they just abandon the transaction. And the schemes have set requirements for the number of authorizations that can be abandoned, and the Visa are lowering this rate. So the threshold is really tight, and we should try to have this rate at a bare minimum. We have actually observed that the removal of the bank ID on mobile in Norway has had a positive effect on this abandonment rate. We also have something called 3D secure events in the roadmap, which means a notification, for example, when a 3D secure authentication has started and when it has been completed. And it will be announced in a future webinar when ready, so that we can send out a proposal for those banks who are interested when the functionality is ready. And with that, I will leave the word over to Bendik, who will lead you or guide you through the way forward for credit cards.
My name is Bendik Flugstad, and I am here today presenting and representing our credit card platform. So, as some of you know, hopefully since it's close to my heart, as many as possible, our good old mainframe credit account ledger, FT-kort, is on its way towards retirement. And sunset is actually planned second quarter next year, and together with it, we are also happy to let the employees who have built and developed and maintained this for decades also enjoy a well-deserved retirement. But with this system's absence, a new one arises, and so I hope that many of you have heard of ACE, which is the new credit account ledger and FT-kort successor. I am here today to give a short status on where we are within the credit card platform and talk a bit about the road ahead of us. So, over the last years, a key task for us has been the rollout of ACE and the migration of banks from FT-kort to ACE. A short look into the past. So ACE was first launched in 2019, and the first bank went live with real customers in 2020. In 2022, we started the first customer migration projects, and last year we finally migrated the first bank. Which means now, over the last 1.5 years, we have been migrating multiple banks at a high pace, and we have actually been through quite of a transition. Efterkort no longer holds the majority of our credit card accounts. So ACE is now considered our primary ledger. ACE currently holds over 80% of our credit card accounts, and over the past 5 years, it has actually turned into a quite rich platform, which can support a variety of services and markets. As of today, we have both corporate credit cards with multiple different structures. We have private credit cards with different family structures, and we have unsecured loans, and this is across multiple countries. So it is no secret also that the rollout of ACE and the migration has directed a lot of our focus within the entire credit card area over the past years. And as mentioned, we are not finished, but we are proud to say that we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And we have been looking forward to this, and we are looking forward to the rest of it, because as we now are getting closer to having all the banks migrated to ACE, we have been able to, and we can more and more finally shift our focus over to enhancing ACE and finding ways to leverage these cutting-edge platforms into creating additional business opportunities, both for us, but also for you who are our customers. And because a central part of our product strategy is to invest in new products and services so that we can expand our market opportunities, but also so that you, who are our customers, can provide additional products to your consumers. For example, last year we have spent a lot of focus into our bonus module, and we quite recently actually launched functionality to redeem bonus points to SAS Euro bonus. And to keep us on track with all this development that's going on, we have a product roadmap. So the product roadmap is used to keep us on track with our own strategy, with what we see around us in regards of market trends, and you. What you tell us that you want and that you need in your business. So it is a plan. It's a desired direction. It's not set in stone, but it's a desired direction for the next 3 years. And I would like to spend some time on looking at the key features for at least next year and the year after. So first up, we have a set of features related mostly to the Swedish market. This work has already begun, but we will continue into 2025. First of all, it's a Bankgirot integration, meaning that we will develop ingoing and outgoing integration to the Swedish Bankgirot payment system. What this essentially does is that it's connecting ACE to the Swedish national infrastructure. Related to this, but also with other applications, is that we will develop support for multiple references or aliases on an account. This in practice means that we will be able to receive and process payments based on references that differ from the billing account number that we keep in our ledger. In addition, we will during next year create support for Swedish tax reporting. So you will be able to create a tax reporting file for credit cards directly from the system to report to Swedish authorities. Next up, we have a set of features related to installment loans, sales finance, and buy now, pay later. Essentially, what we want these features to enable is that cardholders can buy items and buy for them at a later stage. And this can be either over the set of months, it could be over different years. We want to also enable this with sales finance functionality, which is a direct integration with merchants. So the consumers can acquire these products, credit cards or loans, directly at the merchant storefront or in their web shop. We hope that this can enable your products to be more valuable for the customers and more applicable for buying high-ticket items. And we hope that with the sales finance integration, it will open new opportunities for merchant partnerships between merchants and the banks, and that this can foster for new possibilities, for example, exclusive refinancing opportunities. And we hope that it could lead to new and more predictable and long-lasting revenue streams for your products. Next up, we have what we call a balance transfer functionality. And essentially what we want to enable is the possibility to transfer one transaction, parts of a balance, or an entire balance from one account, or even an external source into another account. A typical use case could be to move the balance from two different credit cards, potentially with different interest rates, onto one loan account with, for example, an installment plan. We hope by integrating this balance transfer functionality together with a wide array of different products, for example, different options for deferred payment with different terms, that you can offer your customers a quite tailored customer journey. That it will be able to supplement all this with different refinancing options and the possibility to acquire debt from external sources outside of ACE. Next up, we have an online event notification system that we are working on. Many of you are familiar with this from the card area. And we are hoping to utilize this for credit card accounts as well, meaning that we could send out live events for account happenings, such as transactions, invoice generation, account updates, and so on. The most regular use case would be to provide a push notification to the customer. But what we think is even more interesting is if and how this could be utilized in back office functions. For example, can you create a control system or monitoring system to reduce workload for certain functions and improve operational efficiency? At last, we are also looking into the saving accounts functionality to potentially support simple deposit accounts. And all of these together, in addition to other elements, form our roadmap. I would like to emphasize that this is a dynamic roadmap. It's not set. It will be frequently revisited, and it changes in accordance with our priorities. And please know that you, both existing and potential customers, influence this roadmap, and you're shaping this roadmap. So I will encourage you to challenge us and share your plans, your thoughts, and ambitions, and please discuss with us, because you are one of the key drivers for these priorities. This is for the most part what I wanted to talk about for the credit card area, but I would like to shortly summarize the last 50 minutes for you. So as Jan Ove told us, we are getting far on our restification journey. We have an internal process established to ensure that documentation is unified, status will be visible, and sunset plans communicated. For Click to Pay, the issuer offered Visa will be developed and in 2 phases, but the first one for push provisioning will be available during Q1 25. Sandra presented our new customer level deposit limits, which are already available, and also told about the withdrawal limits, which were proposals for this will be available in Q1 25 as well. For the scheme performance requirements, we will continue to analyze if and how we can help you reduce the use of response code 05. And for the credit account system and the way forward, we are looking forward to discussing this with you. And with that, I would like to thank you on behalf of all the 5 of us and invite Helen back onto the stage with me.
Thank you, Bendik, and thank you, Jan Ove, Benedicte, Sandra, and Thor for a very useful and insightful webinar. to the audience. We have quite a few questions from you already. That's great. If you want to ask a question, make sure to do so within the next minute or so. So let's start with the Q&A. The first one is for you, Jan Ove. Where do we see the list of published contracted APIs? Are they available in View 2? And the other question is, are the APIs presented standard services for all customers?
But I don't think everyone have access to that, but that's another story. Related to what is standard and what is not, the majority of the APIs are standard features, which means that everyone could have access to them. But of course, there are costs related to the usage, and there might also be costs related to the backend service that they actually represent. But in general, we have quite few specific web services for specific customers.
Great. Thank you, Jan Ove. That was a very good answer. Then I have a question for Sandra. Can the withdrawal limit be set as default for all cards, or must it be set by customer?
Yes, so the bank will be able, the bank will be able to set default limits that will be used unless specific customer limits are set or added. But the limits are counted on customer level and not card level.
Great, thanks. A question regarding the authorization response codes. Does MasterCard have similar logic as Visa when it comes to blocking a card for future use based on the response? I'm not sure who should answer that one. Jan Ove?
I believe they have, yes, they do have. It's done in a different way, but they are following the same pattern. Actually, what we heard from customers is that they are even eager to follow up these things.
Great. Here's a click-to-pay question for Tor. How does click-to-pay differ from Apple Pay in online environment?
Well, they are similar in the sense that these can both be used as checkout options when doing online shopping. So that's a similarity. But for the differences, Apple Pay is a wallet that can be used for many things. So in-app purchases online through web, and also for POS or POS purchases. When you authenticate using Apple Pay, you will, in an online situation, you will authenticate using the device where the token is located. So if I go into my browser on a computer and select to check out using Apple Pay, I would authenticate using my phone. Whereas with Click to Pay, it's more of a sort of a secure, auto-filled solution that can pre-populate all the card data in the browser that you're shopping on. For Click to Pay, it will go through 3D Secure, at least the first transaction, whereas Apple Pay aren't relying on 3D Secure, so it relies on the authentication on the device that you're using. So that's some of the main differences between Apple Pay or wallet payments and Click to Pay.
Great, thank you, Tor. I have another Click-to-Pay related question for you. To what extent does the team think Click-to-Pay will compete with retailer solutions such as Amazon Pay?
Well, honestly, it's a very interesting question, because what we see is that Visa and MasterCard are mandating acquirers to offer Click-to-Pay as a checkout method, whereas now it's more competition between various pay or checkout options like Amazon Pay or Klarna, Vipps in Norway. And if everyone sort of allows the card networks to do that and making that payment method as the prioritized one, it will soon have a good market coverage, I think. If there are regulations, if you look at competition, that I mean, it can be discussed if the approach is fair in terms of competition, but that's a whole other discussion. So I don't have the full answer. I think Click to Pay comes with a lot of good features to become a widely used digital wallet. But who will win in the end is difficult to say.
Thank you, Thora. I think that was a good answer. And also to the audience, remember that you can always send the team your questions after the webinar. You will receive the slides with the email addresses. So if you need more follow-up on the questions that you have asked, feel free to contact each of us individually. There's a few more questions. Benedicte, there's one for you. The high volume usage of O5 block code would mean more fine to the banks, but this for credit card only, or does debit card count as well?
So both applies here. So it counts for both of them.
Okay, great, short and sweet. I think this one is for you, Bendik. It's a question regarding the planned buy now, pay later feature for credit cards. Are you planning to build a platform where merchants would be onboarded, or the plan is to build issuing only solution?
I'm glad you said what you said before. I will not be able to answer that question right here on Standing Foot, but I assume we have the name and the mail to the person who wrote that question.
Or they can contact you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please, if the person who sent in that question could send me a mail, and I'll be happy to answer that tomorrow.
Great. And then there is one last question. It's about dispute, but Jan Ove, maybe you can help answer. Are there any updates or news for the future of the current dispute system?
Yes, what we have been working a lot related to dispute is to have a lot of new web services in such that banks could automatically report dispute cases directly into the system. And we are continuously improving that system. So there will be a lot of new functionalities, and we have a high focus on doing the whole process automatically, in such that we limit the amount of manual work into the processing.
Thank you, Jan Ove, and thank you to the rest of the team. Lots of good questions and very good answers. It's time to start wrapping up this particular webinar. Thanks to the audience for all your questions. That's great. We hope for even more questions for the next webinars. And remember, you can always reach out to us if you need more follow-up on your questions or the answers. We will now have a 30-minute break before the next webinar starts. You will find us back here when the break is over, so you use the same link as now. We will be back at 12:30 CET, Nordic time. That means 11 o'clock in the UK and 1 o'clock in Latvia and Finland. So thanks a lot to both speakers and the audience, and we will see you back in half an hour. Bye-bye. Day. In the previous webinar, you heard Jan Ove Haugstad and team present our card issuing roadmap and how we work with innovation. In the third webinar today, we will move over to a topic that has been on everybody's lips for the past 2 years. You will hear Marit Eng and Nitun Manoaran discuss the early impact of AI integration and how starting small with AI can help create value for your business and your customers. But before we move on, a few practicalities. Remember to send us your questions during the webinar. We will do a Q&A after the webinar, so you type them in on the right-hand side, or if you're logging in from a mobile device, it's beneath the screen where you see me now. And we will treat all questions anonymously. But now, over to Marit and Nitun. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Helen. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on AI initiatives and the early impact of AI integration. My name is Marit Eng. I am Head of Customer Support Services, and I'm also Head of AI initiatives in Cards. Together with me today, I have Nitun Manoharan. Welcome to you as well, Nitun. So please take a short introduction of yourself.
Yeah, my name is Nitun. I'm very excited to be here to talk about data and AI and what we're working within it here in Card Services. I'll be talking a little bit about our initiatives and what customer value they bring. But first of all, Marit, take it away.
Thank you, Nitun. As you know, AI is rapidly transforming industries, and we're proud to be part of that journey. We're pushing forward with AI initiatives and recognize the need to balance innovation and care. It's not just about speed, but also about moving thoughtfully. Earlier, we launched our pre-project Leo. Some of you may remember that. That was with the full focus of learning, exploring, and identifying opportunities within AI. And now we are actually building on that foundation to accelerate and bring those opportunities, some of them, to life. While we stay at the forefront of AI, we ensure that every step is measured and aligned with laws and regulations within AI. And our goal is to bring innovation built on trust and compliance. And we believe this approach will provide value to both us and the customers. Today, Nitun and I will cover 3 key topics. First, we will have some figures from Forbes. And secondly, an update on the initiatives within AI, which we are working on. And finally, what customer value our customers can expect to hear from in 2025. So let's start with some figures on AI, Nitun.
Yes. So the survey that we are looking at, made by Forbes Advisor, surveyed 600 of business owners. And how they are planning to incorporate AI and how they are incorporating AI at the moment. So, Marit, can you tell us more about or highlight what you think is most important in top ways of working?
Yes, and what the figures are telling us on this. I think these figures and results shows AI is widely used or planned to be used in customer service and cybersecurity in special, and a bit less on CRM, with nearly half yet to adopt it for personalization.
I agree, Marit. And the next topic is about the business processes and how artificial intelligence is improving it. So, what do you think is the most interesting part in these findings?
On this topic, I think the results show AI is widely used or planned to be, especially for production, automation, and SEO, and less for internal operation and content creation. And that is an interesting view from business owners, I think.
Definitely. And the last one, Marit, is about their expectations to the positive impact from use of AI. So, what are the interesting findings from this one?
It's always interesting to see what the others means about AI. And what we can see from these results, most business owners expect AI to boost both customer relationships, sales, and cost savings, and fewer see it improving decision making and efficiency. And that's really interesting as well.
And while we're looking at these numbers, I think it's important to notice that this is how it is currently today. But I imagine now that businesses are going to mature more and more in their use of AI, the percentages are very likely to keep improving. And not to mention, we can't say for sure how the technology of AI develops as well.
That's true, Nito. Well, AI is becoming a critical tool for businesses, driving both efficiency and growth. Now I'm curious on what you can tell us about our own initiatives and projects. As you are in lead of some of the projects, Nitun, please share with us what you are working on for the time being.
Yes, thank you, Marit. And there I'll go into 4 of the initiatives in the next slide, and where I'll first start with our compliance assistant. So the compliance assistant will specifically talk or be a little bit about how we can use generative AI in terms of simplifying and automating some processes with the use of generative AI. So in this specific case, we have some assessments that are relatively manual and repetitive that we do today. And when they are relatively simple like that, they can be used, or with the use of generative AI, you can then simplify those processes. So to explain how it's actually done, you have this AI model, train it on our internal documentation and previous assessments that we have filled, and that way you can then repeat those in a relatively simple way. And yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. How far have we actually come, Nitun, and what can the customers expect from that?
So, in terms of our compliance assistant, we are currently testing it and seeing exactly how does it function. Does it satisfy our needs that our compliance team need? And that's where we are in the process. We are tuning it, testing it, and seeing how we can use it internally. And the next step would then be to see, okay, can we then use this technology for other parts of card services, and maybe even then see if our customers can take a look at them as well.
That's very interesting. That was a compliance assistant, really exciting. What can we say about within the product development area?
Yeah, when it comes to product development and testing, there are a lot of different things that are going on. I'll focus on a little bit how we are using it today. For example, our developers are using copilots. Many people in Tietoevry have internal chatbots that they can use. That way, we use it in a safe way with our own internal versions of generative AI. And then there's also how can we move on and make some new initiatives there.
Yeah.
So there I'll talk a little bit as an example how we can generate test cases. So for example, if you have a new product, you usually want to test it with the different codes, like what can go wrong with it, and make sure we can try to fix that. Then you can use generative AI to generate some of these test cases. So that is an example of things we are looking into. But of course, we are testing it, seeing exactly how efficient is it? So that's where we are on that. And in this field, there's another one that I'm going to mention, which is what we call customer solution specification, which is how can we use AI to help with the specification of our products. So whenever a customer has a need for a product, we have to specify it with different people from different teams and adjust some parameters and see exactly what the customer wants. So how we do that then is to then see if we can automate that process and try to avoid having so many workshops with so many different people from different teams. And that is where we try to see if we can include AI in this process. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that is when you're talking about the different parameters, that's on our standard solutions as well, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So we have our standard parameters for our products, and every bank has their different needs and different things they want to change to make the product for them and tailor make it. And that's how we adjust these parameters.
Wow, that's very good. What about data analytics and dashboard, Nitun?
Yeah, here we have a ongoing development, and there are some things we are testing and working on for the future. First of all, I'd like to mention that we are, of course, doing the regular internal reports, the dashboards. These are the things that we are doing today. And then we are looking into how can we then make some more advanced reporting, make some more advanced dashboards, and see if we can incorporate more data into those dashboards. That could help us internally quite a lot. And the next step would be then to see how can we share that with our customers in the future, and also maybe then add AI capabilities on top of that.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. What do you think our customers can expect from this, Nitun?
Yeah, so as I mentioned AI, not to just make it a buzzword, I specifically want to talk about how we can use AI for predictive analytics. A lot of reporting and dashboards today show us how are things looking today, but can we use that data and see what can we predict in the future with that data we have? And that is something that we are looking into.
Yeah, and that, as I understand it, will also help with the data-driven decision making when we can combine those analytics.
Exactly, Marit. I think both us and our customers want to become these data-driven organizations, and that is something these type of reporting and data analytics initiatives will help us become even better at.
Yeah, good. And you mentioned 3 initiatives. What is the last one, Nitun?
So the final initiative that we're looking into is within the field of customer support. And specifically, we are looking into seeing, okay, we have the regular customer support call center. How can we then help our agents there? So as you can see on the slide, it says customer verification, and that is where we are looking into, can we help our agents as they have to do verification of every customer that's coming in? Can we then help them on the way with the use of a voice bot of some sort? Maybe using multiple machine learning models and verify the customer before it reaches our agents. So that way we can shorten the queue time and maybe, hopefully, increase the customer experience that way. It is a very complex problem to use different types of machine learning models and try to verify the customer, and it has to be done very carefully. So we are taking our time on this and working on this.
That's very good. And now I also feel that the AI stuff is coming closer to us, because what you are talking about now is actually the combination of technology and humans, our employees, working together on the solution for our customers. That's exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last but not least, Nitun, customer values and opportunities. What could we share with our customers?
So the reason we are doing these initiatives is to bring the customer value. So there are three main customer values we have picked out. And the first one I'll talk about is data quality. And I think it's very important to talk about this one because everything that you do within AI relies on a strong foundation of the data. So if you don't have good data quality, then it is harder to do work with AI. So that is something that we are working on, not only internally, but so that we can provide our customers higher data quality.
Yeah. And data is a huge area, and it's a lot of considerations here. What do you think is our or both ours and the customers' concerns when it comes to data?
Yeah, data, it is very important to think about specifically how can we process and use the data in a compliant way. So let us say, for example, that where do we store it and what kind of procedures and security measures do we have? So in the way we are working, we are trying to use what we call privacy by design. So what we're doing is that from the very start and every step in the process, we have to take into account privacy.
Yeah.
Being compliant with
Yeah.
all the rules and regulations.
That's very good, Nitun. Some more customer values?
Yes, the second one is faster time to market. I've been mentioning how it's going to make things more efficient and so on, and that will lead to us being efficient and being able to bring our product faster to the market and help you as a customer on that path. So that will accelerate development cycles and possibly being able to have this predictive analytics, for example, then you can make faster decisions based on data that you can trust.
Yeah.
And the final one that
Yes.
I'll mention is quite possibly the most important one, and that is customer experience. Not only is it important to make sure that we provide good customer experience to you, the customer, but also to the end user. So, for example, when it comes to the voice bot that we are working on, we won't be satisfied unless it is just as good and if not even better than the customer support that we provide today. Because we have very high customer satisfaction in our customer center, and we can't give up on that.
That's for sure. We all have some experiences with the chatbots in the old days, and I'm happy to hear we will not release anything that is less quality and that is poorer than we deliver today, because what we deliver, as you said, is with very high quality.
And to add on to that, I think it's specifically now the time has come for AI in terms of the technology. It has become good enough where you can use it. We don't know how much better it will become, but now it is actually good enough to use in business scenarios.
Yeah, that's very good. Then I guess we all have something to look forward to, both within data quality, within the faster time to market, and also within customer experience. So as you all know, we are still in an early phase of implementing AI. As we say it, we are hurrying slowly, and we have a lot of initiatives on the writing board still to come. And what we do know is we will already in 2025 see effect from our initiatives that we have started with the customer values that you, Nitun, has told us about. And that was actually all from us. And if you want to hear more about the initiatives, or even better, if you would like to be a part of these initiatives as a pilot customer, you are more than welcome to get in touch. So thank you for now.
Thank you, Marit and Nitun Maruhanan. That was a really nice webinar. Very insightful webinar on how early steps can bring new opportunities when working with AI. So as Marit said, if you have questions or you would like to be part of any of these initiatives, don't hesitate to reach out to them. We are now moving over to the Q&A. We have a few questions already. If you still haven't typed in your question, make sure to do that now. The first question goes to you, Nitun. You mentioned the risk of hallucinations in AI. How do you mitigate inaccuracies in AI outputs, and what are the safeguards to ensure the highest level of accuracy for customer-facing solutions?
So when we're talking about generative AI, it is very natural to also talk about hallucinations. And in this scenario, we are specifically talking about how generative AI, at least in the early versions and sometimes still, is very likely to make up things if it doesn't know exactly what it's going, the exact answer. So, and that's something you have to try to solve by tuning it or using specific types of generative AIs that, for example, is trained on internal documentation. There is a thing called a RAG model, which you then can use to make it focus on the specific data that it's trained on.
Great answer. I think I'll ask you the next one also. How do you ensure that the AI systems handling our data comply with data privacy regulations such as GDPR? And what steps are in place to secure sensitive information?
I think this has everything to do with how we already work with a lot of data. We have to make sure that we are compliant. We are in the banking industry. So it's nothing new in terms of using data, but we have to keep following all of these ISO standards, GDPR, and AI Act is now coming up. So all of these things we need to ensure we follow, and that is by looking at what I mentioned about privacy by design as an example, being compliant by design.
Great. One last question. You can choose who's going to answer this one. Do you work with fraud prevention measures due to working with and using AI?
I can answer that one. Luckily, we are going to hear from crime fraud prevention later in a webinar. We are in many areas working close with fraud crime prevention, and we will keep on doing that.
Great. We will wrap up now. Just to thank you, Marit and Nitun. This was really great, and thanks for good answers. And as I mentioned previously, remember that you can send in questions afterwards also. You will receive the recording and the slide pack later this week. We will now have an approximately a little more than a 30-minute break before the next webinar starts at 1:30 Nordic time. That's 2:30 Finland and Latvia, and 12:30 UK and Ireland. And in the next webinar, you will hear from our compliance team, Per-Ove Sandal and Martin Skarolis, who will give you the latest updates on information security and compliance. So you will find us here when the break is over, and we look forward to seeing you again at 1:30 Nordic time. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CARD webinar day. In this fourth webinar today, we look forward to hearing from Per-Ove Sandal and Martin Skarolis in our compliance team. They will give you an introduction to the latest updates on information security and compliance. You can expect to learn a lot about the newest PCI DSS version, get a snapshot of the upcoming DORA regulation, and also learn a bit about the evolving landscape of PSD3. Lots of tribal language and abbreviations, but I'm sure Per-Ove and Martins will make everything crystal clear to you. Before we move on, remember to send in your questions during the webinar for the Q&A, which will take place after the webinar. And you do so by typing in the questions in the right-hand corner, or if you're looking from a mobile device or watching from a mobile device, it's below the screen where you see me. So send in your questions within the next 20 minutes or so, and all questions will be treated anonymously. So I will now pass on the word to Per Ove and to Martins. Welcome.
Yes, hello, Ellen, and thank you for that. And hopefully we will be able to say something more about all these abbreviations that you presented now. So, hi all, and a warm welcome to the webinar covering information security and compliance. My name is, as Helen mentioned, Per Ove Sandal. I'm head of compliance in cards, and present here today I also have Martin Skarolis with me, and you will hear more from him very soon. There are always new requirements coming that are valid for the business area that we operate in. An example of this is that Tapio will mention the European Accessibility Act that, if I remember correctly, has an implementation date next summer. You will hear more from Tapio in a session later today. And you already heard Nitun also mention the AI Act that was enforced in EU in August this year. We, on the other hand, have chosen to discuss three different areas we see as relevant and important in this session today. We will start with PCI DSS, a standard that are vital for us as a service provider in the card industry. Then we will move on to the Digital Operational Resilience Act. It has an implementation date in approximately 3 months now, so it's soon to be implemented. And when DORA is well established in the market, we need to change focus quite rapidly because PSD3 is up next. As you heard James mentioned several times in his market update this morning. So let's start off with the PCI DSS then, Martins. I will leave the word to you now.
Hello everyone, my name is Martin Skarolis, working security manager in card issuing. Thank you for joining us today. Let's talk a bit about the most relevant security standard we must follow. As many of you know, the PCI DSS, or Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, is a crucial framework. It is aimed at ensuring the security of card transactions and protecting cardholder data. It is not just a guideline, but one of our essential licenses to operate, demonstrating our commitment to maintaining the highest standards of security and compliance. Security standards like PCI DSS are not static. They evolve continuously to keep pace with the ever-changing landscape of potential threats and vulnerabilities. Cybersecurity generally is a dynamic field where new threats emerge regularly, and as such, the standards must adapt to address these risks effectively. One version of a standard might retire, and others arise, usually giving time to transition to a new one, so the organizations have enough time to adopt and get implemented what is required in due time. In this case, a transition from retired version 3.2.1 to version 4.0 and further to version 4.0.1, which is the latest minor update on version 4, has started 2.5 years ago, but still most of the requirements are only recommended up until the 31st of March 2025. It is when all of the new requirements come into effect. As a security sound and mature organization, Tietoevry Banking has already implemented a couple of what is deemed to be new requirements in the current version of the PCI DSS, like documenting roles and responsibilities, implemented authenticated vulnerability scanning, and also put in place multi-factor authentication for all access to cardholder data environment. And the latest two I mentioned here are one of those new requirements that will become effective from next year. But still, there are a few of those that need to be put in place starting from the 1st of April. And that's not a joke. This is when all of those new requirements will be mandatory. And we as an entity need to take into account when undergoing external assessments, which we do on an annual basis across separate, unique, common and shared environments. So let's have a look at it here. We're not allowed to be assessed on version 3.2.1 any longer, since it is retired. And in the middle of the picture here, you can see that in the beginning of this year, we have already completed 2 separate version 4 audits. But the most interesting and relevant thing for you is that as we speak, there is an ongoing version 4 audit on ATM, issuing and infrastructure services, with an aim to complete all the necessary reports by mid-November, so that the attestation of compliance, or sometimes referred to as the PCI certificate, can be shared with you, our customers. Implementing PCI DSS requirements is a significant and necessary step in securing payment card data, but it's important to recognize that this is not a one-time effort. Achieving compliance is just the beginning. The real challenge lies in maintaining the compliance over time, which makes it essential for any organization to integrate PCI DSS into its business as usual processes and daily operations. This will make sure that security practices become an integral part of the organizational culture. This also means regular monitoring, frequent audits, consistent training for employees, and staying updated with any changes in the standard itself. For this reason, we have made a supporting tool, which I use personally to orchestrate both the implementation of new requirements after performing a gap analysis, define and follow up recurring tasks for parts of the organization or roles responsible for performing activities outlined in the PCI DSS standard. The tool is also utilized to support the facilitation of on-site assessments, managing a dynamic audit schedule, especially when coordinating interviews with approximately 150 participants over a 3-week period. Yes, implementing the security-related activities into business as usual processes helps us to prepare for what's coming next. And as you know, one of the new big things is DORA, and I will let Per-Ove tell a bit more about it. So please, Per-Ove.
Yes, thank you, Martin. It's very good to understand that we are progressing well into implementing new versions and the new requirements of PCI DSS. Moving on then, and yes, you're right, DORA, or Digital Operational Resilience Act, is soon to be enforced. Just 3 months from now, in the midst of January next year, we will see that this regulation will be enforced. And so the date is actually the 17th of January. So let's start with a reminder of what DORA is, and then look into what needs to be discussed in the period to come. There should probably be a need for some contract amendments and also what kind of deliveries that might be relevant to secure that we are able to support your ability to become compliant with DORA. As a financial entity, it is your obligation to comply with DORA. And as one of your service providers, we must be able to support your ability to comply with DORA. Furthermore, to regulate this responsibility, there is a need for certain provisions in the contract between the parties. And Tietoevry have prepared an amendment for that purpose. I will show you that on the next slide. The objective of DORA is, as you know, to prevent and to be able to respond and recover should any type of disruption or threat arise. You are all preparing for this right now, and we as an ICT service provider will be a part of this preparation. And Tietoevry might be deemed as a critical service provider. As far as I know, at the moment, we are not. If so happen, we will be subject to the oversight framework, but still it is important that certain provisions is regulated in the agreement between the parties, that is you and us. So moving on then to the 5 pillars of DORA. Since this is something that we have been talking about earlier, I will not spend too much time on this at this time. It's just a quick reminder that there are 64 articles that are grouped in these 5 different areas then. And also that much of DORA, it is built on the fundament of several different regulations, directives, guidelines, and frameworks that our industry already have been working with for several years. Still, there are stricter requirements and controls in DORA, and therefore a lot of work in preparing for compliance with DORA. I mentioned that Tietoevry has prepared a DORA contract amendment. For those familiar with details of DORA, this is covering most of Article 30. And it is also covering some other of the articles in the standard. It can be used where it's relevant. It can be used as a whole or with the paragraphs that is needed to supplement today's agreement between the parties. In addition to the contract amendment, several initiatives are established to cover other deliveries that might be relevant to secure the ability to become compliant with DORA. Here are some of the initiatives, starting from the bottom of the list this time. Contractual compliance, as I mentioned. If functions are deemed to be critical in your value chain, measures must be agreed between the parties involved, and Tietoevry will also secure that the same goes then towards our suppliers that we use in the value chain that we deliver for you. Extended resilience reporting. A governance model must be in place that is describing what to report, how to report, and when to report. And that is being worked on from our side, that we will be able to present that within short now. Security testing and vulnerability management. We are following PCI DSS. Martin's talked about PCI DSS just minutes ago. We are following the requirements in PCI DSS, and we have established a good program within these areas. Security awareness training. Tietoevry perform annual training for all employees and will develop this further to cover different requirements of DORA as well. At the same time, we also require our suppliers to do the same, so that we can secure that the whole value chain that we are responsible for have security awareness training. And supplier register. Tietoevry is at the moment working on establishing a supplier register that are aligned with DORA requirements. So, to summarize this DORA presentation, it can be visualized in 3 parts. A standard package based on what I showed on the previous slide and regulated in the agreement, a set of activities that will be needed to be agreed upon when it's relevant. Examples here is audits and threat-led penetration testing, our support and assistance when that is required, and a set of add-ons that, for instance, can be ISAE 3402 assurance report and other customer-specific elements that is needed. So, what's next after DORA? Well, there are different regulations. I mentioned a couple earlier, but we think that there is need to bring a lot of attention to a new upcoming directive, namely the Payment Service Directive number 3. This directive aims at enhancing payments services in Europe. Further, it also focuses on security measures already implemented in many places, but broadening the scope, for instance, of use of strong customer authentication and multi-factor authentication. Continuing to focus on cross-border payments, and also it broadens the scope to include all type of service providers in the payment industry. Furthermore, if you look at the objectives of the directive, one of the key objectives is increased consumer protection, which means more consumer rights and more secure payments. Another area that was specifically mentioned in the PSD2 review that was performed last year was that more could be done to address competition and innovation. We will probably see more initiatives for open banking services in the future, maybe addressed then as open finance. I did mention security measures earlier that will be improved, and in addition, data protection and privacy are addressed in this directive, hopefully with some new good initiatives here. The last thing I would mention is access to payment services, where again the review of PSD2 suggests that the new directive could go further than could go further. And I must mention that we expect several initiatives here, amongst them about standardization of APIs. And at the same time as this is enforced in a couple of years, there will be a payment service regulation also to further improve the consumer rights. Two objectives are mentioned there, making payment service more transparent and understandable, and also to be clearer on the duties and rights for different providers of payment services. So does this mean anything to us as a service provider in this business? Well, I'm pretty certain it will. There are several parts here of the directive that we think will be worth looking into. I mentioned a couple here. Do we have areas that we still need to improve the strong customer authentication? We need to look into that. Will stricter accountability measures mean anything for us? Definitely, I think improved consumer rights will be an area that we will look into. It will mean changes in fraud prevention, open banking initiatives, more information at payment time, and also at the bank statement, and so on. And standardization of API is also important and will have a focus on our side. And you also heard Jan Ove talked about this earlier on how the API work is structured in the roadmap presentation that he had earlier today. Pending the final version of the directive, this will also probably be a topic for future meetings. And hopefully we can see more details around spring next year if we have a presentation there as well. Then. Looking at the timeline for the directive, the pre-study of the impact PSD2 had was finalized early last year, and by the summer the EU Commission suggested a new directive, and that is PSD3. That was then sent for hearing and new input then from different parties. We do expect now a final approval to come in the next coming months, or at least within a year now. We don't know exact. It can be already next month it is ready. And then there will be a transition period for 18 months, expecting a compliance date maybe late in 2026 at the best, but maybe more likely in 2027. So that completes our presentation today. And you have heard us talking about how we are working with PCI DSS, aligning new requirements with business as usual practices. You have heard that DORA will require some amendments in the contract, and that we can support your ability to be compliant with DORA. And this was also a first peek at the new Payment Service Directive that will require attention once it's approved. And with that, thanks for listening in to Martins and myself today. Have a good day further on.
Thank you, Per Ove and Martins. We're not ready yet because we will have a Q&A. There have been a few questions, and also to the audience, if you still haven't typed in your questions, feel free to do so now. Per Ove, there's a question. I think some of what you guys talked about in the webinar came across as a bit of a paradox to the audience. They say that they seem surprised that DORA, regarding DORA, that Tieto Banking see our role as supporting the issuers to comply, while we as Tieto Banking don't have to comply fully ourselves. Could you comment on that, please?
Well, the DORA is laid upon the financial entity to comply with, and we need to support them in our deliveries to the issuer. Yes, that's how we see this. Of course, we can discuss that further with our customers if that is it has to be regulated in the agreements. What kind of measures that we need to take to support our customers to become compliant towards DORA.
Thank you, Per Ove. I hope that clarified the question a bit. And to the audience, if you have more questions regarding this, feel free to reach out to Per Ove and Martins. There's another question from another customer. Will there be any additional charges for any changes made to the contract in relation to DORA?
I'm not sure I'm the right person to discuss that, but yes, there can be new deliveries that might be agreed upon. So a question if it's yes, I think I would say that it can be new cost to this.
Okay, great. Another question. Given the importance of timely responses in fraud cases and ATM cases, especially with UK regulations requiring rapid action, how could response times regarding the handling of disputes from your behalf improve to ensure a smoother, more coordinated process and adhering to regulation and accountability measures?
Wow. I think that is a question I would like to take back and come with a more thorough answer to. I'm not sure I can handle that right now, here and now.
Great. So to the audience, again, feel free to contact Per Ove and he will help clarify. And then there's a last question. What are the main challenges you face in achieving compliance with DORA?
Yeah, there could be many elements to that. I would say that, of course, it is a new regulation, so that always have to settle down in a way, and then we will find how this can be delivered in the future. So one of the things is that it's new, and also that there are a lot of new information coming this summer. So from summer until the date 17th of January, it's a very short time, and there is a lot of things to agree upon in the days to come now. Also, that there will be different expectations, I think, from different parties, and finding a good baseline for that everybody can accept, so that we can be most efficient in how we deliver the new reporting, the new way of reporting to our customers. I think that can be a challenge and something that we are working a lot with right now. So hopefully within the next weeks or so, we can present a bit more of how we see that we can report to our customers.
Okay. Thank you, Per Ove, and thank you, Martins, for a great webinar. It's time to start wrapping up this session. Thanks to the audience for your questions. Feel free again to reach out to my colleagues directly or through your business manager if you have more questions. We will now have a 30-minute break before the 5th webinar starts. So we will all be back at 2:30 Nordic time. That is 1:30 UK Ireland time or 3:30 Latvia and Finland time. After the break, our next speakers will explore the future of inclusive card payments. And we have a special guest with us for that webinar, so we're very excited about that. So you will find us here when the break is over, and be sure to be back at 2:30. Thank you. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Card Webinar Day. In this fifth webinar today, you will meet Tapio Vailahti from our card personalization team, along with Iiro Nummela from the Finnish Association of the Visually Impaired. We are really happy to have a representative for the end users together with us today. Together, Iiro and Tapio will explore the unique challenges faced by visually impaired customers, and they will also discuss innovative technologies that can enhance the payment experience for visually impaired. But before we move on, remember to send us your questions during the webinar. We will share all the slides and presentations and the recordings with you later this week. We will do a Q&A after the webinar is over. So type in your questions on the right-hand side of this screen, or if you're watching from a mobile device, underneath where you see me now. We will treat all questions anonymously. So I will now pass on the word to Tapio and Iiro. Welcome.
And I have a great pleasure to have with me Iiro Nummela, Service Manager, Access to Information from Finnish Federation of the Visually Impaired. Before we start, let me say thanks to James, who in the beginning of this webinar day mentioned us reaching the 93% of our cards being sustainable that we deliver to our banking customers. It's quite a big achievement, so thank you for cooperating in that area. Of course, we are not stopping there in the area of sustainability. We are currently promoting and organizing card recycling initiatives here in the Nordics. Getting to these inclusive card payments, I would like to also mention that, as many of you may know, we can provide you with the state-of-the-art solutions also in this area. This is partially also thanks to our card partner network. We are working with multiple globally leading card vendors, including Thales, Tag Systems or AustriaCard, and Giesecke and Devrient. So we have all the goodies that you can have also in this inclusive, in the accessibility area. So this webinar we are conducting as a dialogue between Iiro and me. And before we get into this, let me first introduce the challenge. There are millions of citizens in Europe with visual impairments. It's millions or tens of millions depending on where you draw the line of defining visual impairment. According to a study by Thales, 9 out of 10 of visually impaired at some time in their life have been a victim at least once of a scam, fraud, or maybe a simple card payment error. So it is quite a big challenge that we are facing, and the question is, how can we address those challenges? It was mentioned earlier about the different directives that EU has been busy with, DORAs and PSDs and others. He also mentioned the EAA, the European Accessibility Act directive. It's quite a wide-ranging directive, and it has various implications affecting banks as well. The areas of how it affects banks are onboarding, payment cards, payment terminals, self-service machines, digital services. What we are discussing here with Iiro relate mostly on the onboarding, on the cards themselves, and how those cards can be used in a more accessible way at the point of sale. So without further ado, let me introduce Iiro. So welcome, happy to have you. Please present yourself, the Federation, and your thoughts on accessible card payments.
Thank you, Tapio. Good afternoon. I'm Iiro Nummela, and as Tapio told, I work as a service manager for access to information for the Finnish Federation of Visually Impaired. I was born almost blind. I can see a little bit myself, and I'm really happy to be able to share a little bit of my own, but mostly the experience that our federation has got from our members regarding issues related to card payments and the solutions to overcome those challenges. Something about my background organization. We improve life of visually impaired people in Finland by promoting equality, but also provide some special services. And we work as umbrella organization for our local associations in Finland. When defining visual impairments, it's a big variety of people. Some of the visually impaired people are classified as totally blind, whereas others, partially sighted people, some people have more sight. And it is estimated that in Western countries, around 1% of population are, according to WHO criteria, classified as being visually impaired. So in Finland, we would be talking about around 55,000 people. Then we can move to my experience, what we have got regarding card payments. The first thing is, of course, starting to use a new card. When you receive an envelope, it might be first how to recognize the card, which card you have received. You might have some assistive technology to read the print if you cannot read it by eyes, or using some magnification glass or device. Then there is a particular challenge with reading the PIN code, because that's sometimes stored in such a way that it can be hard to find or read. Then when you have managed to start using the card, then it's the issue with recognizing the card. If there are many cards, which of them are payment cards, and if you have several payment cards, so which of the cards are which is which, sort of, if you have many of them. Then it's the entering the PIN is one of the key challenges, because the payment terminals, although there are some standards, but they are differ. There's some of them have touchscreens, and some of them have some extra buttons on them. So it might be, and then it's they don't always give any sound feedback, or if there can be some questions before you can enter the PIN. So if you don't get this feedback by any other means than on the screen, so it can be difficult to know when the device is ready to enter the PIN. Then there's also the lack of control when you are authorizing a transaction. So which way to ensure or know the amount which is charged from the account before the transaction was confirmed. So those are in brief the challenges that many of the visually impaired people are facing in their daily lives.
Thank you, Iiro. It was a great introduction to what we are now going to go through one by one. So how it goes from here is that we are showing some suggestions or solutions on how to make the card payments and payment cards more accessible. Let us start with the onboarding area. As you mentioned, the card carrier includes the card, and what is on the card carrier is something that we are mostly no longer using the black and white, which of course is very easy to read as such because of the big contrast, but there are more and more use of colors, brand colors, and so on. So what sort of challenges or, let's say, bad examples you may have on this, Iiro?
Well, I mean, I would say that so-called fancy design is not always that nice when you have a not first of all, if you're using some assistive aid to read the text aloud, it might be difficult for the OCR to recognize complex design, complex layouts. So I would vote for clear instead of complex or fancy layouts. But that also comes to the fonts and especially the contrast. If their colors are used to indicate, highlight something, it can be hard to find this, or it doesn't work as intended if you cannot make a difference between colors.
Yeah, and that is something that maybe is worth noting, that from our card personal services, we have expertise also to help you designing colorful yet readable and accessible carriers. Still moving on, but still on the onboarding, one possibility is also to add a QR code that then leads into an audio, video, visual content to give more information about the card, what's in that, how to use it, and so on and so forth. I guess this is also useful for you, Iiro.
By using a mobile device with, for instance, assistive technology called the voiceover or talkback, that those are on iOS and Android. So it would be easy to follow this QR code and find the information which is behind it online. So it would be, instead of trying to recognize the text on the print, you would just, if you can see a little, you'll just click on the QR code and go further. And there could be even audio, video, right?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, one can say that it's also great for people without visual impairments to see something more about the card. So it's a marketing opportunity as well for the issuers, I guess. Moving then on to the actual cards. There has been for quite some time already the round notch on payment cards used by Visa, MasterCard and other brands. Quite recently, MasterCard has introduced two new types of notches to differentiate debit, credit and prepaid cards. I guess that these are quite valuable, Iiro.
I mean, before it was easier to recognize some cards using this embossed text on the card. It could be possible, but even then it was a bit tricky if you had several cards. But especially recently, while these embossings have been disappearing, or not all the cards are having them anymore, so it's even more important to have some other tactile marking to distinguish different cards.
Yeah, you are right that this embossing is going away. So I guess this is, as you say, even more important than what it was. Additionally, actually, there are also developments where on top of the notch, we can have Braille on the cards. Benefit of Braille is that it can provide more information of the card type, the brand, and even of the issuer. But then, of course, the question is that, is Braille something that all the visually impaired people can benefit from?
Not all the visually impaired people, but there is a bigger number of people who can read some short markings or even words in Braille than those who are sort of heavy users and use Braille to read even complete books or some long text. So even having some small, just a few letters would help quite some some people, not all visually impaired, of course.
Yes, and I guess that you mentioned this embossing. So of course, Braille, if you don't actually read it, is another, let's say, differentiator from the other cards to recognize a payment card.
Yeah,
Then,
and Braille labels are widely adopted already so it should, I don't know how to produce them on cards, but at least everyone has seen Braille labels in medicine packages, for instance, I guess.
Yeah, true. So that is quite useful, and it's good to mention, as we are showing here, is that in Norway there are more than 2 million cards already with notch and Braille on card from different banks. Let's then look at what happens at the point of sale and what card technologies can make use from the accessibility perspective. Biometric cards using a fingerprint as the cardholder verification method are now emerging into market in commercial volumes after many years of piloting and so on. The benefit of biometric card for any cardholder is that they secure the payment in such a way that whenever you pay, you just put your finger on the sensor on the card and you can pay any transaction value with one single tap contactlessly. This is security and convenience for the regular user, but I think that this could be even more important for visually impaired.
Yeah, I mentioned in the beginning about these challenges with entering the PIN, especially on touchscreen terminals, but also on regular terminals or with a physical keypad, because it doesn't give you any feedback what's on the screen, and also to find these numeric keys if they are not properly marked and so on. So it would be much easier to just use the finger print as the authentication.
Yeah, and I, of course, looking a little bit the accessibility more widely and thinking about the elderly people, which also are a big percentage of the visually impaired people, is also that there may be issues of remembering the PIN code or having somebody looking over your shoulder to steal the PIN and then the card. So this is also quite a good means of providing more security and feel of control for the people with different kinds of challenges as well. And of course, that goes for any regular user as well. Now, that was one sort of a high-tech innovative solution when it comes to payment cards. There's then that is initially developed for regular use for anybody. But then there's one solution that is specially targeted for visually impaired people, and that is what is called a voice card. Before getting into that, maybe just note that these biometric cards, on top of the regular card cases coming up in Europe, in France, and elsewhere, there's also a specific project in UK addressing visually impaired with a biometric payment card and adding also tactile guidance markers on the card to easier find where the sensor is. But then moving on to the voice card I mentioned, voice card, or as somebody calls it, a talking card. So this is a card that is targeted for visually impaired. And what is innovative here is that it has an embedded Bluetooth chip on the card that is connected to the EMV chip. And this Bluetooth chip is then communicating with a paired handset, which then can speak out loud what's happening when you are paying with the card. So this is something where, and of course, the phone then is talking either to the loudspeaker of the phone or then via the paired headset. So what's your take on this, Iiro?
I mean, this would actually solve one of the key challenge with the payments, which is that how to know the amount or the transaction value before you already authorize it. Because if you have set up your phone notifications to prompt and tell these transactions, so okay, then yes, you get to know how much was charged, but that is only after it was confirmed, it was authorized. But this solution, you would also get the information right on time, I mean, before you confirm.
Yeah, exactly. So this is really this is closely tied to the EMV transaction itself. So you hear, not see, but you hear what is supposed to be charged. You then can enter the PIN, you get the confirmation of the PIN and reconfirmation of what was the charge at the end of the day. So and that comes in that particular order, and there's no way going away from this. So this gives the control, as you say, about the transaction value. This is not theory. This is something that is already commercially launched in France and in Turkey by Crédit Agricole and then Papara. And if you are interested, when we share the PDF file of this webinar, there will be links to YouTube where you can find out more information of these cases. So to finish this part of the webinar day, let me give some notes on what we have talked, and also looking at the ESG, environmental and societal parts, what we are doing. So we at Tietoevry are progressing in our ESG path on sustainable cards, the recycling, and also noting the different directives that are coming up, further acronyms coming up, like CSRD, that is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. That is very much about including also the recycling. There are also brand mandates, as James mentioned, and coming up. And we really wish to continue to work with you, issuers, for a more sustainable, more accessible card payments. And we are at your service, providing solutions and discussing with you and providing insight from the likes of Eero and others. So finally, let me thank you very much, Eero, for taking your time and giving your insight on acceptable card payments. I hope you found this webinar interesting and useful. And well, thank you, and please share your final concluding remarks on the topic.
I'm very happy to have this chance to share with you the different aspects in making card payments safe and more user-friendly. And it has also been inspiring to hear about these innovating solutions that already exist. They are not just some research projects, but already existing solutions. But also hear that the work is ongoing, and there might be even new, or there will be new solutions available shortly.
Thank you, Eero. So I guess we are then ready for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tapio and Eero, for a very insightful webinar. And Eero, it has been great having you with us to provide first-hand insight for our customers on how personalized payment or card payment solutions can make a real difference for visually impaired people. We have a few questions, and I will start with one for you, Eero. For visually impaired, how is it to pay with cards opposed to paying with cash? Comparing card and cash payments. Yes. You mean yes? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very much in favor of card payments. Have been for a long time, and I think many people also, regardless of their site, are in favor of card payments because okay, you can recognize cash, but it takes quite some time, and you also to keep the cash, the notes and coins well organized. You need, if you're using cash, you need to keep them well organized to find them quickly enough.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And then Tapio, over to you. We have a few questions for you. In Finland, there are so-called combo cards with both debit and credit functionalities. What kind of blind notch or other features can be used to help visually impaired people recognize the card type?
That's a very fair question. This having these combo cards is not very typical outside of Finland or Nordic countries. I would say that the answer probably lies in what is the contactless means of payment, because that is predefined either to be the debit or the credit. So I would consider using the notch to define the contactless transaction. Is it made debit or credit? That would be my recommendation.
Great, thank you. Another question. Due to a lower proportion of customers facing accessibility challenges, what is the minimum required stock order for the enhanced accessibility card designs?
Well, depends on which design method we are talking about or solutions. As of the notches, I would recommend having that on all the cards because the banks, I guess, don't have any database who is visually impaired and who is not. The Braille is quite an affordable solution, so that is something that the certain Norwegian banks have put on all of their cards. When we then talk about biometric or voice cards, that is something that we see a trend that issuers, and this is starting from the fintech, are increasingly providing a selection of cards for the consumers to choose from. And this is something that when the cards have additional value, whether it's some metal cards or some other fancy cards, or if they are biometric cards or these voice cards, this could be something that could have a charge on those, or they could be addressed to the actual segments. So I know I'm not trying to sidetrack the question, but it is then something that we can discuss on finding a solution, and it's of course related to the bank's approach to the different segments as well.
Great. Thank you. Tapio, how do you view to read out card details loud in terms of legal or other regulatory requirements that falls on the issuer? For instance, that sensitive data might be shared with not only the end customer.
Well, if this question refers to what's on the carrier, so at the end of the day, that's rather the same, pretty much the same for any consumer as such. So I don't guess that's let's say a privacy issue at the end of the day. If it then comes to the voice card that is reading out loud in a way the transaction value, not the PIN. PIN is not mentioned in this, but it just says that it's confirmed. So this, of course, is something that if you want to keep that privacy, you can then use the headset so that nobody else hears what the charge is at the end of the day.
Great, thank you. Very good answer. And then the last question. Do you think it's realistic that we will have cards with fingerprints? It might make sense that physical cards will vanish in a few years with better solutions as mobile payment, and it sounds a bit expensive.
Well, I have news for you. And the fact is, looking from the European Central Bank figures, for example, in Euro area and also globally, the number of payment cards is increasing. So we are seeing figures that even in Euro area, people are now carrying 1.95 cards on average. 2 years ago, it was 1.8. So there's still a growth coming up. It is important to recognize that even if the mobile payments are there and they are widely used, the card is still the backup and is also the only remaining physical token between the bank and the consumer. So it is in banks' benefit, I believe, also to make use of the card as a relationship token expressing the brand and also expressing the value of the card for the consumer and his or her values and approaches. We know, for example, metal cards are something that people are showing to their friends, and they also then want to have those cards. So coming to biometric, yeah, it is more expensive. It has benefits. You can't use a point of sale that without your finger, without your living finger. So there are benefits on that. It minimizes the fraud at the point of sale as well, PIN thefts and so on. And it's convenient. You don't need to enter the PIN. Any transaction, you just put your finger. So it's a value proposition, and the ones who like it can opt for it if banks are giving that as an option. And if they don't, they don't.
Thank you, Tapio, for very good answers, and a special thank you to Iiro for being with us today. Welcome back, everybody, to Card Webinar Day. We are now about to start the last and sixth and last webinar of the day. In this webinar, you will meet our colleague Jon Erik Setsos from the Financial Fraud Prevention team in Tietoevry Banking. Jon Erik will discuss how AI is both a powerful tool for fraud prevention as well as a potential weapon for criminals. But before we move on, some last practical instructions. Remember to send us your questions during the webinar. You do that by typing in your question in the right-hand section on the screen or below my face if you are watching us from a mobile device. All questions will be treated anonymously. And it's now my pleasure to welcome you, Jon Erik. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Helen. It's really great to be here.
I'm Jean-Luc Picard, captain of the USS Enterprise. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, Jon Erik Setsos, who is a specialist in financial crime prevention. Today, he will explain how AI is used by fraudsters and what we are doing to stop the fraud. Be aware that anyone can be fooled. Do not believe what you see or hear. But now, over to you, Jon Erik.
Thank you, Jean-Luc. So why did I start with this video? Well, 3 reasons. 1, of course, I'm a Star Trek fan. Second, I wanted to learn how difficult is it to make fake videos like this, and it's actually quite simple to make them. And thirdly, this is one of the biggest challenges we're going to face with fraud going forward. I'm Jon Erik Setsos, work with financial crime prevention. I'm going to be talking and showing you how fraudsters are using AI, using this technology for their own benefit. And then I'll go on to explaining what are we doing to counter these challenges. I showed you a deep fake now. I'm coming back to more about that. But they're also using AI to generate phishing emails. We all know the phishing emails, very generic mails, their customer and so on. I received this one, the first one that was actually customized to me with my name, referencing a real relative of mine. And of course, it's all about trying to get me to do something to benefit the fraudsters. So they are getting better and better at this. One step back, fraudsters, they criminals are attacking systems, and they've been doing that for a long time. But this is complicated. This is resource intensive to hack into systems. On the upside is a high return when they succeed, but it is challenging. Of course, the criminals are now using AI for this hacking as well to get into the systems. And of course, on the defense side, AI is used to prevent and stop them on that. So it becomes the battle of the AIs. And criminals have realized that this is becoming too complex. And what's the weakest link? And they were thinking, okay, let's hack people instead. People are easier to hack. It's more difficult to install defenses in people, and they have access to the system. They have access to their bank accounts. So you can get to the money by hacking the customer. This is simple. This is cheap. With AI, you can reach a lot of people. You don't get a huge return for each user, but you will get a lot of them. So by hacking people, the fraudsters will actually get a lot of money. Harari introduced the term hacking people in his book, and it's about knowing people, knowing who they are, and then benefit from that, and then convincing them to do something to benefit the criminal. Just a small sidestep on this, how good these AIs are. This is a research that was done, a survey that was done, testing a double blind with questions, comparing the answers from the AI to the answers of real doctors. And for one, the answers from the AIs were in general better, but more surprisingly, they were perceived as more empathetic, which is interesting because this is an AI, this is a machine. A machine does not have empathy, but that was the perception of the people working with this. So these AI systems are good and getting better. And also, by leaving all the traces we do as people on social media, the fraudsters will know our weaknesses. We answer all these stupid questionnaires, what's your first car, your first teacher and stuff. All that is about collecting as much information of you as possible and then being able to use that to hack you. And they're playing on emotions. They know that works. Some clips here, examples of this, which we see are very typical. There is some kind of emergency going on. Somebody calls you from the bank. You have lost your phone. Different kind of emergency to trigger your emotions, to make you act fast on this. Just some different examples here. One thing we've seen coming in the US, which is growing there, is what we call the kidnapping scam. They have sampled the voice of a child and then use that to say, call their parents and say, hey, Dad, I've been kidnapped and these bad people have me, talk to them and please pay them, and so I'll be able to get out. Really haven't seen a lot of that in Europe yet, but we have other types of emergency scams that are coming. And surprisingly, you only need 1 minute of video to create a deepfake. 1 minute is enough to create a convincing deepfake video. And the criminals are using this to their benefit. Okay, just a second. Hi, this is John Eric.
Hi, Dad. It's Shelby.
Oh, hi, Shelby. Good to hear from you. How's your vacation in Spain going?
Not so good, Dad. Somebody just stole my purse with my phone and all my cash and cards. I need to pay the hotel and the money I owe to my friends. Could you please send 1,000 euros to my friend's account?
And that's how they do it. As a parent, wouldn't you be triggered when you hear your own child's voice like that? Would trigger that immediate action that you want to do something. And again, you need 1 minute, and getting 1 minute of somebody's voice online today is fairly simple with all the social media around. Daniel Kahneman talks about the system 1 and system 2. System 1 is the system that's constantly on, that's monitoring if it's safe, and that's also the system that triggers the immediate actions. So when a tiger jumps out of the bushes, you don't sit down and rationalize and decide, what I'm going to do and so on. You run. That's the immediate action. That's system 1 that's doing that. Today, not too many tigers, at least not in my neighborhood, but the tiger is this voice call coming in from a voice you know. Somebody calls you from the bank saying, hey, John Eric, somebody's hacked into your bank account. We need to move your money to a safe account. And there you go. And they hook you on that. So it's about triggering this immediate action. And they know about this triggering the emotions. And ask yourself, are you sure you cannot be manipulated? I like this drawing that was made by Peter Steiners more than 30 years ago now. On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, which is still a challenge. I've added my own addition to that. With AI, you can be anyone on the internet. And this is scary. We see different types of fraud. We have what I call the short-term frauds. It's this voice call, the phone call I just showed you. We have what we in Norway call the Olga fraud. It's named Olga fraud because this is typically targeted against elderly women. And a common girl's name about 70 years ago was Olga. And they're targeting, and it's typically this kind of safe account fraud, or they want to get their credentials. CEO fraud, you pretend to be the CEO. You send an email typically today to somebody in the finance department and say, we need to pay this bill immediately. It's about a contract and it needs to go today. Then it's the more long-term, the dating, the romance fraud, and the investment fraud. This is where you work your victim over a long time. You spend time making that victim fall in love with you or get convinced about your good investment. And this may take some time, but the return from this can be actually very good. And we see a great increase in these kind of frauds. Now you can use AI for a lot of that processing. There are already AI girlfriends and boyfriends you can download and use them on your mobile phone, which are very good. You now put this AI to work on dating sites. So without having to use any human manpower, you get these AIs to work for you, to hook the victims. And at a certain point when you see, okay, now we have worked long enough on them, then you can include people and then go to the next step, which is about making them pay money. This was a survey we did in Norway and Sweden, asking people about AI, if they're worried about if this will increase the risk of fraud, and almost half said yes, and rightly so. This is a big challenge. Imagine you're a finance worker in a big organization. You're Friday afternoon, it's almost time to go home. You have a last video call with some of your colleagues to wrap up the week, etc. Suddenly, the CEO of your company joins the video call. You can see and hear him, you recognize him. And not only him, also one or two of the board members join. They tell you this story, it's a wonderful new contract they have gotten, going to start working with this overseas company, which is great. But there's only one thing, we need to do some payment up front. And you sit there as the finance worker and you go through with the payment. This is probably similar to what happened in this case, where they paid out $25 million, which is a lot of money, by using deepfakes, convincing that individual that it was the CEO and the board members. Of course, this took a lot of planning and generating the video and so on, but they managed to get through with them. And there are more cases like this as well. We also see the cases where they're using famous people, like Elon Musk has been used several times, to promote something that people will invest in to the benefit of the criminals. So it is a big challenge going forward. This is recognized by Interpol, which also says that investment fraud, advanced payment fraud, romance fraud, these are growing, and the use of AI is a really good tool for the fraudsters to do this. I've been talking about hacking people, but they also can use it to impersonation. You could do a video injection attack on a phone where you have the face recognition. You can then inject a fake video stream. This is more complex, more difficult, but if you want to target someone, it's possible to do this, to try to do an account takeover. And also testing our defenses, the banking system's defenses. Where are the weaknesses? Which transactions can we get through in which bank? So they will know where are the limits, how can they attack victims in different banks. Okay, so it doesn't look very good, right? The criminals are hacking people. How do we defend against that? And what are we in Tier Every Banking doing for this? Just some numbers here saying they're expecting that romance scam cost about $3.8 billion in 2023. This is a lot of money. So what are we doing? Well, we're trying education. And education is important. It will definitely help. This campaign is from Norway. It's called svindel.no, fraud.no. And it's about 3 simple keywords. Stop, think, check. Those are the keywords you remember. It's very seldom something is really urgent, really important. It has to happen now. Stop, think, check. However, when the tiger jumps in, you forget that. Your system 1 is going to defend you from that immediate danger. Somebody calling you from the bank, your child calling, what it may be. We have the classic fraud prevention mechanisms that we have implemented over time, and we need these. These are really good. These are really good to prevent against account takeovers. We have the 3DS, we have the tokens, we have the biometrics on the phone, etc. Really good mechanisms to stop a lot of fraud. And if you look at the modus operandi for the fraudsters, it used to be that they wanted the victim to share the credentials, so the fraudsters could then go in and act on behalf of them. But these mechanisms that we have makes that so much more difficult to do that. So now it's typically the safe account fraud where they want the victim to transfer money, or the dating fraud, or the investment fraud. And in that case, it's the victim themselves that's doing the transaction. And they will do this second factor. They will do the 3DS. They will do the face biometrics. So it doesn't help. In Tier Every Banking, we have a good mechanism for defending against somebody else using your account. We call it user or person present. We're taking a photo, doing a liveness, making sure it's really you being there and not somebody holding up a photo or an injection attack, as I mentioned. And we compare that to a passport photo that was taken earlier. So we have a trusted source. So this is a good mechanism against the account takeover. But again, for the hacking of people, this is not going to help because it's still the user that's going to be doing that themselves. 3DS monitoring, same thing. This is a simplified illustration of that. We are monitoring how this is being done. But as long as the user is doing that themselves, well, it doesn't help. But it stops a lot of fraud. We've seen great numbers on stopping fraud with this. So we cannot install fraud monitoring, fraud protection in people. We can try to educate them, but we need to do something else as well. I want to give an illustration of what we're trying to do here. Imagine this red block here is a stack of money. These are numbers from Norway in 2023. This is the amount of fraudulent transaction, the value of those. If you compare that, just keep an eye on that red dot now. Compare that to the total transaction volume. This is a needle in a haystack. It's really challenging to find those transactions. But that's what we're doing. That's what we have in our defense center, both AI and people to do. We're doing fraud monitoring with AI. We have what we call a large financial model, which is like a large language model, but tuned against financial transactions. It does transaction monitoring. It keeps an eye on the customer risk rating. It does predictive modeling. We're analyzing network of people because that will be important to know who is sending money to whom and how are their behavior. And we have the customer history. How is John Eric's normal behavior? Is this behavior outside the normal? This is a very important part of our defense against hacking people. And we see with AI and the traditional rules that we have built up and we're constantly improving, we catch more than 90% of fraud attempts, and most of them without any losses. And this is thanks to the combination of people and AI. And this is what we're putting more effort into, making even better solutions to catch more fraud with this combination. And we truly believe that the combination of having defense center people sitting 724 monitoring, working on this together with AI as a helper. We did ask people in general if they would be willing to share financial information and let us analyze it with AI to fight fraud. And about 75% said yes, sharing information is fine. Interesting, 13% said not at all. But when it came to analyzing this with AI, this dropped a lot. And there is a lot of skepticism around the use of AI. What can it do? What will it tell about me as a user? How will the bank use it? So we have a job to do on educating, saying we are using this to catch the bad guys. This is not about profiling you. This is about catching the bad guys. Also, a final result from that survey, where we asked who's responsible in these fraudulent cases. And that's also an interesting case. It says about half says it's a shared responsibility between banks and the customer. Interesting to see that the difference between Sweden and Norway, where Sweden put a lot higher responsibility on the banks than Norway do. Some interesting results here. And whose responsibility is this? Well, you could argue it's a societal issue. We have done societal campaigns before. We did seatbelts for car for societal benefit. We did smoking laws, etc. Maybe we need to lift it on that level to a higher degree as well. So helping people that are being victims to being hacked by criminals and making it more difficult for criminals.
Hi there. I'm Jordan Belfort from Wall Street. You heard what John Eric said? This is how we criminals operate now. We will continue to do more of this because it works. And people are easily fooled, making our job simple. So unless you have a good plan, like listening to John Eric, I will soon be cruising on my new yacht. So long, suckers.
I've shown how AI can be used. I've shown how simple it is. I mean, these deepfakes I made wasn't perfect. I mean, if you look at them a couple of times, you can see some glitches, but if you spend more effort, it's going to be really good. We see how the criminals are triggering our emotions. Remember the tiger coming out? Triggering that urgency in people. They know about that. They profile us, gathering as much data as possible to know who we are and target us directly. People are worried about AI and fraud. So are we. We are working constantly to protect against this. And we see also how it's being used in technical attacks, testing the bank's defenses, doing injections. We are trying education. We are doing education. It is important, but it's not enough. The tiger jumps out and your emotions are triggered. So the most important thing we are doing is monitoring. We're keeping an eye on what's the state of all these transactions. We're doing that with a combination of people and AI. And as mentioned, we are catching more than 90%, or we're stopping more than 90% of the fraud attempts in our defense solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jon Erik. That was a very powerful story, very insightful, and I think you all made us wake up with that tiger. We have a question for you. If you guys have more questions, remember to type them in now. Why do you think there is such an increase in investment and dating fraud in the Nordics especially, and what can we do to reduce this kind of fraud?
Yeah, I mean, the Nordics have been particularly vulnerable. We've seen the greatest increase, and I think it's due to three factors. It's a high degree of trust in the Nordics. We trust people. There is unfortunately a lot of loneliness, and people have a lot of money. And if I was a criminal, I would see this as a business opportunity to attack people in the Nordics under those circumstances. How can we reduce it? Well, we're trying to stop it with the defense center, with monitoring, etc. I personally think we should introduce more friction in banking, friction in transactions. Personally, I would like to see something like we use in IT security 4 eyes principle, right? I assign someone I trust to be sort of my guardian. It could be my spouse, my child, my parent, whatever. And if I'm doing a transaction that, you know, comes under certain criteria, big amount, etc., I have to prove it, but you have to prove it as well. Then it's going to be so much harder. Even if the criminal managed to hack my brain, well, they would have to go to you as well, because you would say, what is this? And you wouldn't approve it. You would get in touch with me and ask. Delays in transactions, maybe not having your bank fully open when you log in. Maybe then you log in, but then you need to do additional security to get into other parts of your banking, etc. More friction makes it more difficult for criminals.
That's true. Thanks a lot. I think that was it with questions for Jon Erik.
All right.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's time to start wrapping up the day. Thanks to the audience for all your questions. Again, please reach out to us if there's something you feel like we haven't answered properly, or if you have more questions for us. So this second CAR webinar day is coming to an end, and it's time to say goodbye. But before we do that, I would like to thank all the presenters for an excellent job sharing important knowledge and insight with our much appreciated customers in the Nordics, in Latvia, in Europe, and in UK and Ireland. And not the least, thanks a lot to each and every one of you watching. You are our customers and you are much valued, so thanks for staying tuned in and for your focus throughout these 6 webinars. We hope that this CARD webinar day has provided you with both valuable and relevant information, which will help you when making prioritizations and business decisions moving forward. As our customers are at the very center and heart of everything that we do in Tietoevry Banking, we really want your input on how to make our customer events even better and more valuable for you next time. Therefore, we will send out a survey shortly after this day is over, hoping that you all can spare a few minutes to share your thoughts and input and impressions with you. So thanks in advance for helping share and helping answer the survey. And we will send out the recording and the presentations a bit later this week. So I wish you all a lovely afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you in the spring of 2025. Tusen takk. Thank you, Kitos, for spending the day with us. Goodbye.